Chronicles of the Stellar Mecha War. This video is purely for entertainment and does not infringe on copyrights or laws. The rights to the novel and image belong to the original author. We do not claim ownership. Don't like waiting and want to listen to this fanfic in full now? Subscribe to our Patreon, where you'll find the best fanfics. Chapter 501. Let's fight. Lin Fan's personality is a bit sensitive. Coupled with her previous illness, she is easily anxious. Although she has recovered recently, it is because, after entering the Special Affairs Office, the people around her deliberately create a good psychological condition for her. Every day when she wakes up, she is sunny, happy, handsome, rich and free. Even Lin's mother is conquered by her work and no longer makes a fuss. Xingqian is strong in itself. Except for the 2 accidents of cuckold and ugly woman, it can be said that she is really unmatched. This kind of life makes Lin Fan gradually confident and away from the timid and inferior self in the past. But Gro's approach is different from the past. Even Zhu Kunjin, who has always been known as a smiling tiger, has pulled his face and stopped smiling several times. Lin Fan knows that in the seemingly calm situation, countless people are worried day and night. Her sensitive heart can easily sense this tension. The mighty and domineering J performance and the messy evacuation drills are aggravating her anxiety little by little. Fortunately, Kine Leo's bracelet has been working, constantly reducing the negative emotions in her heart. But the emotions could be relieved, and the messy thoughts became more and more flustered as the fact that Gro could perform space jumps was exposed. She felt that this mentality was not going well, and was thinking about whether to consult Jin Sichin to relieve it. Jin Sichin was sick. Before he recovered, he was assigned to deliver the dismantling of the Xianting. The Xianting, once the highest honor and pride of the H country, had to be dismantled quietly. Even if it was for safety reasons, Lin Fan still felt that something was weighing heavily on her already chaotic heart. She had been concentrating on the task before, but now that she had a break, she looked at Wu Yusen smiling at her through the small screen of her mobile phone, and somehow she was dazed. As soon as she said it, she knew she was wrong. What's the use of asking Wu Yusen? He knows even less than she does. But it's amazing that, even if she can't get an answer, she feels less depressed. It's as if the heavy pressure really spreads a little to Wu Yusen through the invisible signal line. Wu Yusen didn't expect her to be suddenly depressed. He was stunned for a moment, and then continued to laugh. I saw that you have been calm recently, and I thought Minister Lin was not worried at all. I didn't expect that you hid it so deeply. In fact, you are as panicked as us. In one sentence, Lin Fan was pulled to the same position as everyone else. Everyone is worried and afraid, so there is nothing special about you, and there is no need to feel guilty. We are all adults, and everyone can whitewash the situation. What's more, after staying in the Special Affairs Office for a long time, most of them have developed the ability to remain calm in the face of adversity. Except for the rookies, the field staff with rich mission experience can basically remain calm, even if the top of the mountain collapses. But are they really not afraid? How is it possible? Fear of death is the instinct of all living things. That's why they work hard and try every means to avoid the worst result. After thousands of years, the peaceful and prosperous times that have been hard to come by, how can they watch it being destroyed? Zhu Kunjin issued an emergency call a few days ago, and all members who are not special or emergency tasks were all withdrawn and on standby to ensure the maximum combat effectiveness of the personnel. Lin Fan didn't know that after she left, all the field staff of the Special Affairs Office were on standby. The military's ammunition and armaments were all transported to the place, and all personnel were taking turns to rest and waiting for orders. 800 bionic armors and the giant Mecha Pangu were also undergoing a comprehensive overhaul. No matter what kind of monsters they come from, don't think they can get away with it easily. Wu Yusen grinned with his big white teeth and said harsh words easily. We have to fight to know whether we can win or not. We have to peel off a layer of skin, even if we are willing to cut ourselves off. Didn't our predecessors conquer the world with Xiaomi and Q? Now there are so many high-tech weapons, it's just right to try those aliens. Wu Yusen didn't say a word to comfort Lin Fan, but she felt a lot more relaxed after this seemingly rough expression. Yes, what's the use of being afraid? What's the use of worrying? What's coming will come eventually. Think about those messes, and what should be fought will still be fought. Although Wu Yusen is an elite, he has no special abilities at all. Guns and fighting, once encountering a shelled one, they can't be used. It's better to use the domineering damage. Is he not afraid? Of course he is afraid. In front of the unknown alien technology, he is a fragile skin. But he still said with a smile that he wanted to fight. The special office is buried deep underground, and there is Kine Leo's barrier to protect it. If it weren't for the attack of digging 3 feet into the ground, it would not affect them at all. They could have hidden underground to minimize casualties. But no one said no to the call. Those people with strange abilities usually try their best to hide their tracks and hide from ordinary people, so that they won't be discovered. Now they have to stand out when ordinary people hide underground. Lin Fan's thoughts are surging in his heart, and his eyes are sore again. Xingqian, as the strongest humanoid weapon of Langsing, has various indestructible properties, but he actually shrank back. Afraid that the opponent is strong and afraid that he can't beat him. Before Gro showed up, her heart had already begun to lose. She was protected by Xingqian, but she was still shrinking. What about others? What about the billions of people who have no special powers and no armor? They can't even protect themselves. Lin Fan thought of Lin's father and mother, Wu's father and mother, Li Chunhua's parents and wife, and their little daughter, Gao Fen's grandparents, Ji Yu's parents and the family of the 2 aunts, Song Ren's grandparents, grandfather, parents. All the people he knew and didn't know flashed in his mind one by one. Former classmates, colleagues, couriers, takeaways, even short videos, and people he didn't know in the news. The crowd of people turned into dense dots, miniaturized on Langsing, and billions of people lived comfortably with the rotation of Langsing. And the stars were suspended outside Langsing, and these people were behind her. Didn't the people in the military think that they couldn't win? They thought about it, but they were still ready to go. Didn't the people in the special affairs office think that they couldn't win? They thought about it, but they all responded and came back to stand by. They all tried to use their abilities to maintain this prosperous world. Even if they are not capable, they must do their best. And she, enjoying the convenience of a high position in the special affairs office, earning a high salary that everyone envied, and winning a medal of bravery, lived a carefree and comfortable life in a not so heavy task. After enjoying all the benefits, when faced with such a big event, her first reaction was to shrink back. Exclamation mark. Looking at Wu Yusen, who was still smiling gently and comfortably. Although he was still grinning at this moment, Lin Fan believed that, if there was a situation, he would rush out immediately the next moment. Thinking of those who would rush out at any time and stand in front of the people, Lin Fan never felt so small. She had enough strength and the ability to surpass everyone, but she had no consciousness to face the difficulties and protect others. The chaotic thoughts in her heart gradually twisted into one. The fear was still there, but the shrinking disappeared without a trace under the dazzling personality of these fearless people. Lin Fan thought of his body that could be considered tattered before. If it weren't for Wu Yusen, the Special Affairs Office, and the 800 people, he would also be one of the refugees, and it would be likely that he would be the first to die. To be alive till now, to make new friends, to enjoy life, to reconcile with parents again, to do more meaningful things, to fight for land crossing, to save more people, to leave more hope. Even if she dies, it is also her gain, right? Anyway, everyone will die. Why not be that patient? The tiny immature sense of protection penetrated the twisted thoughts and emerged little by little. Once she figured it out, Lin Fan felt relaxed. She pulled the corners of her mouth at the person on the phone. Her eyes curved, but her eyes were extremely firm, and said, "Let's fight." Who's afraid of who? This chapter is about Lin Fan's change of mentality. I thought about it, and still felt that it should be written. She changed from protecting the people around her to protecting the public. I don't believe that people are born selfless. There must be a process. I think this kind of change is more natural. People all start from selfish egos, are touched by some things, and then start to be brave and righteous. From this time on, Lin Fan truly has the qualities that a hero should have. Chapter 502 grows here. Oh, Minister Lin is awesome. Wu Yusen clapped his hands pretentiously from the opposite side. Lin Fan ignored him and continued to eat. Actually, we can also think about the good side. Wu Yusen secretly breathed a sigh of relief. He was really afraid that Lin Fan would have a mental problem at this time, but fortunately it was solved. What if Gro came with friendly intentions? It's not impossible, but the possibility is very small. After all, according to the discussion of experts, if it is a friendly visit, there should be some information exchange. Driving the boat to someone's door in such silence is not a friendly behavior at all. Wu Yusen said this just to interrupt and not let Lin Fan continue to immerse herself in the bad atmosphere. After all, she still has to work in the sky later. Lin Fan subconsciously wanted to refute, but the word came to her lips and turned around. Yeah, I hope they are here for a friendly visit, and it would be best if we worry for nothing. It's better to say less unlucky words, especially when she is so close to the sky. The facts can't be reversed, so it's better to say something good to make people happy. Wu Yusen said some small things to make Lin Fan happy, and the two of them tacitly did not mention Gro again. After drinking and eating, Lin Fan continued to work. It was past noon in H country. Fortunately, it was winter now, and it was not too hot, even when the sun was at its zenith. The space station, which had only 3 sections left, was in a T-shape, and had already flown to the back of H country. At the speed of the stars, it was not slow to fly there. But now all the cameras in the sky were paying attention to Gro, and she spent a lot of time avoiding other cameras and taking a detour. However, after the space station automatically disintegrated, she could use the space capsule to cover her body. Back and forth, it was difficult to push all 3 capsules to the predetermined orbital position. On the way, she also passed the International Space Station. There seemed to be no movement on it, and she didn't know how the evacuation plan was going. Lin Fan didn't dare to worry too much about other people's affairs, and carefully pushed the space capsule away. When everything was done, and returned to the sky above H country, the moon was above their heads again. Before Lin Fan returned, she subconsciously glanced at the moon again, and this glance made her unconsciously move closer to the moon. Xingchen, you have deviated from the course. The ground control center sent a voice reminder in the headset. Lin Fan stopped. She looked at a dark place in front of her. There was nothing abnormal, but she just felt that something was wrong and reported a coordinate. Is the abnormal magnetic field here? There are also coordinates in space, just like in the sea. They are all 3-dimensional coordinates. Lin Fan has been to the sky many times, and she is familiar with these coordinates. In her eyepiece, the Xinglan system will automatically mark the coordinates, so the reported coordinates are very accurate. The ground reacted for a few seconds before applying. The coordinates you reported are indeed the location of the abnormal magnetic field. What's wrong? Is there anything abnormal? Lin Fan's eyepiece has a camera that can see her first-person perspective. At this moment, the big screen on the ground control console is exactly the scene in front of Lin Fan. The moon is all pitch black, and the coordinates in the center of the line of sight do not seem to be abnormal. I can't say it, I just feel something is wrong. It's a feeling. Lin Fan felt a little nervous. This feeling is somewhat similar to when she was doing a mission before. It can be said to be a sense of tension, fear, crisis, or perhaps the sixth sense that John Woo talked about. The space agency immediately mobilized nearby equipment to move over there, and at the same time, checked the magnetic fluctuation data. Xingchen, the magnetic value over there is rising sharply, and it is facing a peak at any time. Before the ground commander finished speaking, he saw the center of the large screen. The space that was originally pitch black, where even the distance could not be distinguished, and the size of the small spacecraft was needed to distinguish, suddenly appeared ripples visible to the naked eye. How could ripples appear in the airless space? No one knew, and everyone was shocked by the strange phenomenon on the screen, and lost their voices. After a slight distortion, the surrounding black curtains suddenly squeezed towards the center, and the small aircraft that were pulled over by the magnetic field changes ran towards the center with a large slide. Lin Fan subconsciously stepped back. Well, fortunately, there was no obvious pulling feeling. Just when everyone thought that the small aircraft would be sucked into the center, the dynamics suddenly stagnated. The contraction, distortion, and pulling all stopped, and then, As if playing in reverse, all the movements began to run in the opposite direction. The small spacecraft were pushed out together again. A black spot appeared in the center of the squeezed part, which was opaque and non-reflective. Lin Fan's heart skipped a beat. He saw the black spot expanding rapidly like an ink spot dropped into clear water. Then, the color in the middle of the black spot became lighter, gradually revealing a different dark gray. Then the gray also grew a little bit, became clearer, and became three-dimensional, as if it was protruding. Before Lin Fan could react, the ground control center exploded. Quick! Contact the Hamley observer. The main control had no time to calm down, and shouted at the top of his voice. The Hamley observer has been following Grow to observe. But unfortunately, it was an observer launched by Country P 5 minutes later. Country P sent a real-time picture, and the same space distortion appeared at the front of Grow. Wormhole. All the space agencies online were shouting. But at this time, the appearance of the wormhole was obviously not a good thing. Although it was not obvious, Grow's head had entered the wormhole. In other words, the gray that Lin Fan saw was the tip of Grow. It was making a space jump. Xingchen, come back. The main control issued an order as soon as the news was confirmed. When Lin Fan knew that the gray object protruding from the space plane in front of her was Grow, she was also scared and ran away. Before entering the atmosphere, she looked back. In a few minutes, Grow had come out a lot. It was much larger than the spacecraft next to it. There was naturally chaos on the ground. Even though it was already night, the various departments responded very quickly. All combat readiness departments received the first level combat readiness notice. The old man sat in the office of the National Taiwan University, looking at the huge object that was coming out little by little on the screen, with an expression on his face. Leader, do you want to sound the air defense alarm? Sen Fangyuan walked to his side, bent down and asked softly. The air defense alarm is a signal for an evacuation exercise. Once the alarm sounds, it means that evacuation will begin immediately. After waiting for a while, the old man spoke. What is the completion rate of the exercise? The report the day before yesterday was 89%. Sen Fangyuan replied quickly. Then wait a little longer. The old man narrowed his eyes and stared at the dark grey long celestial body that was still moving on the screen. After Lin Fan came back, she went directly back to the Special Affairs Office. The mission of the Space Administration had ended. She was a member of the Special Affairs Office and had to be on standby here. The atmosphere in the office was extremely tense. Lin Fan didn't care about other people and rushed to the cafeteria to eat. Wu Yusen and Jin Sichen came to meet her, and Wang Fengfeng couldn't leave in the information room. Jin Sichen waited for her to come back and strengthened her psychological preparation, and then ran to the female clown cave without stopping. There was no way the female clown couldn't be short of people. The attention paid to the female clown's barrier was very high, but the female clown was not a friendly person. As the most suitable contact person, Jin Sichen had to stay in the cave, waiting for the female clown to recover, and acting as a bridge for communication between the two sides when necessary. Before 11 o'clock in the evening, all Grow came out of the wormhole. Then, the wormhole disappeared. Everyone stared at Grow with fear, watching what it would do next. But it has been quietly floating near the moon, doing nothing. What's going on? Many people discussed secretly, speculating whether it ran out of energy after the jump, it needs to rest and so on. The optimists began to promote the alien-friendly theory again. Time passed little by little. After 12 o'clock, the information department of the Special Affairs Office discovered an abnormal transmission signal. After interception, it was found that the transmission content was actually an AI database. Is someone transmitting an AI database? ZHU Kunjin didn't know much about computers, but Grow was still hanging in the sky. At this time, there was suddenly such a data stream, which made him think of Lin Fan's previous hypothesis. Before the alien invasion, it is necessary to obtain sufficient information, and the AI database is simply an encyclopedia. It is the latest real-time updated version. Whether it is true or coincidental, ZHU Kunjin gave the order intuitively. Intercept. Cut off the transmission. Here it comes. It came through the wormhole. The previous AI was prepared for Grow. There is a person who has been doing bad things and no one guessed it twice. In addition, there is a bug here. There should be a time difference when the Neptune probe sends the signal back. I set it to synchronize here directly. After all, this is a novel with a science fiction background, so let's just assume that Langsing's technology has developed to this level. Hahaha, it's a hard setting. Chapter 503. The air raid alarm sounded in the middle of the night. The data transmission had been going on for a while. Although it was quickly cut off, no one knew what information the other party had obtained. ZHU Kunjin was furious and reported the situation immediately, attaching the location where the data was sent. 15 minutes later, a loud noise was heard in a quiet office building. The glass of the door of a technology company that has recently made a lot of money from the AI dividend was smashed to pieces, and a group of fully armed special agents broke in. They searched the office in a carpet-like manner with the shrill alarm. 3 minutes later, everyone gathered at the door of the server equipment room and shook their heads slightly, indicating that there was no one else. The team leader looked at the neatly arranged server cabinets with flashing green lights and waved his hand. Cut off the power and take all these back. Outside the door, the building security finally arrived at the scene and saw a large group of men stepping on the broken glass door and carrying things out. He hesitated for a moment, but decided to perform his duties. Performing official duties. No one is allowed to approach. A special police officer at the door showed his police officer ID. The security guard thought that they were wearing uniforms and making such a big show, so they couldn't be fake, right? Just as he was hesitating whether to continue standing at the door and watching them work or just walk away, a big man came out of the door and stopped him. "Are you the security guard here?" "Ah, yes. The security guard replied. "Is anyone working overtime in this company tonight? Especially in the last half an hour, have there been people coming in and out?" The captain walked a few steps in front of him and asked. It seems that someone just left not long ago, but it's not clear if it's from this company. We are guarding downstairs. The security guard stepped back unconsciously. The captain looked up and pointed at the camera above and asked, "Is the surveillance useful?" "Yes, it is useful. We are a high-end office building, and these equipment are well maintained." The security guard smiled with pride in his words. The captain directly asked to see the surveillance, and the security guard hurriedly agreed and stepped forward to lead the way. 10 minutes later, several photos were transmitted to the Special Affairs Office. "Director, after the signal was intercepted, someone left the company where the transmission point was located." The person from the information department reported loudly. It was as expected. It was not enough to set up the program in advance to send a message to grow. When communicating with an unknown station, someone must be there to debug it at the beginning. The special police did not catch the person, so he must have escaped in advance. That's right. Since they can transmit files to aliens, there must be a special channel and method. If the transmission signal is cut off, it should be discovered in time. ZHU Kunjin took a look and found that the screenshot was clear, but it was taken from the top of the head, and the angle was not normal. The employee who received the file continued to report, "This person is Feng Chuang. Isn't this that so and so?" Wang Fengfeng jumped out. That. The words came to his lips, but he couldn't say them. A group of people looked at Wang Fengfeng, which was really anxious. "It's the two people that Lin Fan rescued in the first mission." Wang Fengfeng didn't make it difficult for himself. He moved his 10 fingers to call up the mission data, and the photos of the two rescued people were displayed side by side on the big screen. Luan. Feng Chuang. The people next to him quickly analyzed and compared Feng Chuang's ID photo with the surveillance photo, and confirmed that it was the same person. This Feng Chuang is a well-known freelance photographer, the kind who runs around with a camera on his back. In the previous rescue mission, his skills were extraordinary. Is it a coincidence? Someone asked. Humph. ZHU Kunjin snorted coldly. How can there be so many coincidences? After these two people cleared Xingchen's memory, they were transferred to other departments. Wang Fengfeng continued to read the mission report, but so far, they have not found any abnormalities in these two people. Isn't it discovered? Someone sarcastically said, "Without us, those people can't do their work. Send Feng Chuang's information and notify his alert department." ZHU Kunjin suppressed his anger. What did the special police say? They are tracking him, but Feng Chuang has a strong anti-reconnaissance awareness and is still missing. Sky, I can't find it. Wang Feng didn't believe it and then reacted. That's not right. If the anti-reconnaissance awareness is so strong, how could he leave such a clear image in the office building? Yeah, don't people usually wear hats or hoodies to cover up when they do bad things? Could it be that he thought the cameras couldn't see clearly at night? Someone murmured. I think he did it on purpose. ZHU Kunjin's eyes were burning. He deliberately told us it was him and then provoked us so that we couldn't catch him. No way. Everyone looked at each other. There are still such brave people now. If this Feng Chuang has a close connection with Gro, it wouldn't be surprising. ZHU Kunjin showed a sinister smile. At the beginning, he was very skilled in the tunnel, and I thought he was a specialist in this, or he was infiltrated by forces from other countries. As a result, there was no clue until now, and Gro is hanging in the air. He feels that the backstage has come, so he is not afraid anymore. Everyone joked. Issue a level 1 wanted order and arrest them as soon as possible. ZHU Kunjin ordered. This person may be a breakthrough, and we may be able to know Gro's purpose from him. Unable to find it in the Sky system, the operatives of the Special Affairs Office urgently called up the civilian surveillance footage and finally found Feng Chuang's trace in an inconspicuous corner, and the SWAT officers immediately chased after him. While chasing Feng Chuang, ZHU Kunjin also reported to strengthen Luan's surveillance level. These two people appeared together at the beginning, and they are not normal people. Now that one has exploded, the other must not make any mistakes again. 3 o'clock in the morning. A shrill air defense alarm suddenly sounded over the sky of Sijiu City. All departments, please pay attention. All departments, please pay attention. An air raid is about to arrive. An air raid is about to arrive. Everyone immediately enter the nearby underground bunkers. Everyone immediately enter the nearby underground bunkers. The loudspeaker also sounded. This is not a drill. Repeat. This is not a drill. Don't let people live a good life every day. The middle-aged man was awakened and threw the quilt under the bed and yelled. The lights in the community will lit one by one. Stop talking and get dressed quickly. The wife threw her husband's clothes on the bed and ran to the children's room while putting on her clothes. Didn't you hear the loudspeaker say it was an exercise? It's not an exercise. The middle-aged man was very annoyed. Are the devils from Country P still asleep and are flying bombers to look for trouble? Or are the aliens so upset that they are invading? Didn't you see the short video a while ago? Our firepower is so strong that we scared those bastards to death. Who would dare to come? The middle-aged man was very irritable. Not letting people sleep well in the middle of the night. Let me know which bastard is looking for trouble and making trouble for others. I will tear him apart. Hurry up. The previous exercises were linked to work performance. Just think of it as a bonus, no matter whether it's true or not. It's better than your boss asking you to work overtime all night and you still can't go home, right? The wife's voice came from outside. The man thought about the mortgage he had not yet paid off, and his anger finally subsided a little. He pulled a handful of his hair hard and began to put on his clothes. Never mind, it's not shameful to bend over for a few pieces of silver. Feng Chuang, I have laid 2 foreshadowings before. There was a person secretly making a phone call in a dark room, but you didn't notice it. There is no name of Beiki. Those with names are all interesting. Chapter 504 Go to 800 to pick up the Mecha. Because they had experienced 3 drills before, the couple was not panicked. They put on a small bag with valuables, put on a cotton jacket for the child, and hurried out. The elevator was busy and could not be pressed. The middle-aged man was impatient to wait, so he held the sleeping child and led his wife to the stairs. As soon as they entered the stairwell, they heard a lot of footsteps and complaints. Seeing that everyone was busy, the man didn't feel so uncomfortable. He was just glad that he chose the 6th floor when he bought the house, so walking up the stairs was not so tiring. When they got out of the unit, the cold wind blew in their faces. The wife hurried up to wrap the child's cotton hat. In the community, countless people poured out of the unit and ran to the gate. The couple never knew that there were so many people living in their community. The previous drills were all during the day, and everyone took shelter nearby. Unlike today, it was at night, and most people were resting at home. With so many people, plus it was the middle of the night, the broadcast and air raid sirens were still ringing, and there was really a sense of escaping. In the planning and construction of the city, there must be a garden or square within 3 kilometers of the outer ring residential area, which is used for leisure and entertainment on weekdays, and as a shelter in special times. There are fewer parks and squares in the inner ring, but there are dense subways, and the entrances to each subway are also the entrances to the underground passages. The route has been planned for the previous exercise, and it is not particularly far to walk there. Suddenly, the child coughed twice in his cotton-padded clothes. The wife complained. He was a little cold, and I gave him cold medicine at night to make him sleep. Don't let him go to the shelter in such a cold weather. Don't let him get sick again. The man paused and ran back. Where are you going? The wife was stunned, hurried to catch up, and whispered, drive. The man whispered back, don't let us drive. The wife grabbed her husband's clothes. They said it would hinder traffic, so let us walk. You listen to them. The man had already rushed into the corridor and ran to the underground garage. I saw many people driving there during the last exercise, and nothing happened, right? But the wife was still hesitating and suddenly heard the sound of a car starting in the garage. Look, aren't there other people driving? The man suddenly found his confidence. Besides, aren't you worried about your son getting sick? The wife paused. Of course she was worried. Don't be silly, let's go. The man ran quickly to the parking space. Even if something happens, the law doesn't hold everyone responsible. So many people are driving, so we can share the burden, and we won't be so unlucky. The sound of the engine rang out again in the garage, and a headlight quickly passed in front of them. Yes, if others can drive, why can't I? The wife calmed down, holding the small bag containing the family's belongings, and hurriedly followed her husband. At 3 o'clock, Gro's stone camouflage faded and returned to a metal shell. Before everyone had time to admire the shape of the high-level spacecraft, a hole opened at the bottom of Gro, and an aircraft the size of an aircraft carrier slowly launched into space and flew straight to Lansing. Locate. Locate quickly. The head of the military shouted. Where are they projecting? Now Gro is above them. Fortunately, with today's technology, it is not difficult to obtain this data. Soon, the alarm sounded in Sigio City. The old man and other important leaders entered the underground shelter as soon as possible to continue monitoring and commanding. All the J-defense equipment that had been on standby for a long time was mobilized in an orderly manner. When ZHU Kunjin learned that Gro's first wave of outposts was heading straight for Sigio City, it was hard not to think of the AI database that they had intercepted before. Sigio City is the capital of H country, and Gro just happened to target it first. Is there such a coincidence in the world? Has Feng Chuang been caught? ZHU Kunjin asked. Not yet. The people in the information department quickly checked the information. 2 hours have passed, and a skilled photographer has actually played a well-trained special police as a mouse. ZHU Kunjin didn't have time to be distracted at this time. He had more important things to do, so he ordered without thinking too much. Publicize the real-time images in the station. Soon, all the screens in the Special Affairs office began to synchronize the images of Gro's Vanguard ship in Sigio City. Lin Fan also saw it in the cafeteria. This thing should look unfriendly, right? Her heart was pounding. The aircraft carrier-like aircraft was coming towards Sigio City with great momentum, just like a missile dropped by Gro. At this time, even the optimists dared not be optimistic anymore. Lin Fan's headset suddenly rang. Comrade Lin Fan, this is the Commander-in-Chief of the Sigio City Military Headquarters. From now on, all your actions will be dispatched by the military headquarters. Lin Fan was stunned for a moment, looked at the dispatch information that ZHU Kunjin had just sent on his mobile phone, and said yes. Now, you will leave immediately, go to 800, and bring the combat-ready Mecha to Sigio City. The other side ordered. Quick. Lin Fan stood up suddenly, and the movement was so loud that the table was arched, and the dishes clattered, but she didn't care. What's wrong? Wu Yusen couldn't hear the voice in her headset. As soon as he asked, he felt a gust of wind in front of his eyes. I have to listen to the dispatch of the J department. Go to 800 to pick up someone now. Lin Fan ran away as he said this. Hey, be careful. Wu Yusen shouted at her, looking at the mess of cups and plates on the table, and ran to his office. Going out through the special passage the night before, the stars quickly rose into the sky. Under the night sky, the neon lights of Geo flickered. Someone accidentally saw the light flash by, wiped his eyes, and could not see anything again. He thought it was his eyes that were dazzled. At this time, Lin Fan had already contacted 800. Because the situation was urgent, no one had time to greet each other. Xingqian flew at the highest speed to locate the coordinates given by 800. How fast is Xingqian flying at full speed? The Special Affairs Office is nearly 2,000 kilometers away from 800. Xingqian took less than 4 minutes from Taki after landing. The coordinates given by 800 were not in the 800 area she was familiar with, but on a nearby mountain, surrounded by dense forests, but the coordinate point was a bare mountain wall. Lin Fan was a little skeptical at first. If she went straight up like this, wouldn't she hit the mountain? But based on her inner trust, she continued to move forward. Sure enough, 800 should have detected that she had arrived. The mountain wall quickly opened to both sides. There was also a metal door inside, which was also separated from top to bottom, presenting a tic-tac-toe structure. Lin Fan didn't care to marvel, and tried to shrink his wings and body as much as possible, and passed through the small hole. The door was not fully opened, and slowly closed again. Xingqian went forward along the passage, but slowed down. In less than 10 seconds, she landed at the designated location. Looking at the familiar furnishings around, Fu Guang and many other mechas were neatly arranged on one side, and the staff were evacuating on the tower. Lin Fan knew that they had arrived at the laboratory of 623. As soon as Xingqian landed, she withdrew her mecha. Cui Yan had been waiting on the side, and when he saw her looking over, he took a few steps to greet her. I'm here. Since Lin Fan returned to the Special Affairs Office, although various data were still shared with 800, they were not as good as the first-hand data they measured themselves. In addition, due to the conditions of the Special Affairs Office, Xingqian's limits were often not discovered. This time the situation was urgent, and Lin Fan had no scruples, so it was much faster than they expected. It was less than 10 minutes since they received the mission notice, and just as they arrived at the 623 laboratory, Lin Fan actually arrived. It was simply. Cui Yan looked at Lin Fan with more and more enthusiasm. Yeah. Lin Fan was no longer a rookie, and he was anxious, so he didn't care about Cui Yan's performance at all, so he walked over and asked. I want to take the combat mecha with me, what should I do now? Here it comes. Why did I spend so much time and effort on 800 before? It was to study the stars and build mecha troops to use here. Fighting a star or a group of mechas, the latter is definitely better. Team spirit. I don't like lone heroes. I like the kind of group fights. Ha 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 ha. Chapter 505 Pangu's first flying experience. Fu Guang, Jinggang, Yufeng, and Bing Lun, the 4 first-generation armors, must go. Although the second generation's ability to drive 6 small ones is slightly worse than the first generation, it is much stronger than ordinary armor and flesh, so it must go too. These are all expected, and they have practiced flying with them before. What Lin Fan didn't expect was that Pangu would also go. As a giant mecha, Pangu's size and striking power are its advantages. If you ignore its slow start and not so flexible reaction, it is a very good choice to hold the line on the battlefield. But Pangu has no flying function, and because of its huge weight, it can't even float. If you want to move, in addition to letting it move by itself, you have to use several large transport planes to hang it and fly. In the current situation, no matter how good the plane is, it can't come as fast and stable as Xingqian. Anyway, Xingqian has a large load, so just let Lin Fan take it away in batches, saving time and effort. Gro went straight to Sigio City, and no one knew what the advanced ship would bring. All the highest technological combat power of each country could only be sent there. With Xingqian's speed, even if the battlefield spreads or occurs, she can quickly lead the team back to support. Put all the combat power on the battlefield, and the goal is to fight quickly and decisively. Song Ren, Li Chunhua and others also saw Lin Fan. They did not come over, but just nodded to Lin Fan and quickly entered their mechas. Ke Wenbin, Zhajing and others also knew that the situation was urgent, so they could only look at Lin Fan from a distance to show their concern. After all the members were equipped, the internal communication was turned on, and the group hurried to Pangu Cave from the inside. Pangu had risen to the ground and started successfully. After Lin Fan and his group arrived, the bionic armors quickly attached to Pangu's limbs. Soon, Pangu had 10 more pendants on his body. When did you do it? Lin Fan asked, looking at the bloated Pangu. When Xingqian took them flying before, the bionic armor arms were interlocked, but now even Pangu can be buckled. But in this way, she only needs to hold Pangu to take these 11 mechas away, which is indeed much more convenient in terms of operation. Half a year. It was Zhang Zhaoji who proposed it. Song Ren replied, many mecha equipment in 800 have been modified to facilitate situations like this. Lin Fan gave a thumbs up. It's no wonder that these researchers are smart. The communication in Pangu was also connected to Lin Fan and the others. After confirming that the bionic armors were all snapped into place, Lin Fan grabbed Pangu's neck and left a special lifting position for her. He swung his big wings down and flew into the sky easily. The bionic armor pilots experienced the long-lost feeling of weightlessness, but the Pangu pilot didn't react at once and swayed for a while before he stabilized his body. Fortunately, Pangu was so huge that it was held upright when flying. If it suddenly turned sideways, the pilot would probably not be able to adapt for a while. After all, after he was selected to drive Pangu, he never thought that he could fly so fast in the sky. This is much more uncomfortable than flying in an airplane. The Pangu pilot suppressed the slight dizziness in his body and insisted on not saying a word, thinking that he couldn't give up. 800 surveillance found that Pangu's driver's data was abnormal, so Lin Fan was asked to fly slower, so the plan could not keep up with the changes. Lin Fan had slowed down the flight speed because he was concerned about others, but he slowed down again to accommodate Pangu. It saved time when going, but it would inevitably take longer when returning, so when they arrived at Sijiu City, the sound of gunfire had become continuous. Above Sijiu City, when Lin Fan was dragging the mecha halfway, the advance aircraft had already broken through the clouds and came down. If it was not dark, you could see it by looking up from the ground. The fighter planes were cruising in the sky and dared not approach. All kinds of heavy equipment on the ground followed the instructions in the communicator and followed the aircraft in the sky. The middle-aged man sat in the car and looked at the taillights of the car in front of him impatiently. Why are so many people driving on the elevated road at night? After they drove out, they wanted to go to the nearest shelter. But there were too many people walking to the shelter, and the motor vehicles were blocked at the fork in the road by the flow of people, unable to move forward, and a long convoy was formed. The man thought that there were indeed too many residential communities nearby, and he didn't know how long he would have to wait, so he simply turned the steering wheel and got on the elevated road, ready to go to the next shelter 5 kilometers away. Over there is half a commercial district, and there are not many residential communities, so it shouldn't be so congested. There is no regional restriction to enter the shelter, as long as you check in and register when entering the shelter. Anyway, it's only 5 kilometers, so it's just a matter of switching to drive. It was indeed very smooth when I first got on the elevated road, but as more and more cars joined, a long queue gradually formed, and there was a trend of traffic jams on the elevated road. Isn't it the same as you, wanting to be a smart person? The wife silently complained in her heart, hugged the child in her arms, moved to the window of the back seat, and looked out. How long has it been? If we didn't drive just now, we might have been in now. The man also felt a little regretful, but he was already stuck in the middle, and he couldn't leave the car here, and the car was not cheap, so he had to hammer the steering wheel. This is a crappy exercise. In the middle of the night, people can't sleep, and they are still stuck in the road. It will probably be 9 or 10 o'clock after the exercise. I won't be able to rest at home for long. I have to go to work in the afternoon. The man braked lightly and moved little by little with the car in front. No music, no smoking, no loud talking. The man looked at the side window depressed and helpless. At this time, the traffic police must still be sleeping. Suddenly, he saw a flash of light in the sky. Something fell down quickly. The man was stunned. What is it? A meteor. Before he could react, a huge crash came from the distance. The sound was not like the deafening sound waves of a meteorite falling to the ground, nor was there a brilliant fire. The man frowned. Could it be that he was sleepy and dazzled? That wouldn't work. His wife and son were still in the car. He pinched the inside of his thigh hard, but it didn't feel enough, so he opened the glove box and looked for cooling oil. Another light lit up in front of him, and he looked up inadvertently. This time it was right in front of him, and he stared at it intently. It was like a ball, round and plump, and it just fell from the air. The man wanted to open his mouth to warn, but just as he opened his mouth, the thing had hit the bottom. There was another loud noise, and a cloud of dust rose in front. Then there were screams and noises, and the man still kept his hand in the glove box. "Husband, what's wrong with you? Husband?" The wife was startled by the loud noise so close, and looked around, but she saw nothing, except the noisy crying outside. She first looked at the child in her arms, who was not awakened, and then looked up at her husband, but he was stiff and motionless. She pushed the man in fear. The man woke up, after being pushed by his wife. He guessed that there might be a car in front. That was it. Was it a street lamp head that fell down? Such a big thing, falling at such a fast speed. It is estimated that the people in the car. "Husband, what's going on?" The wife felt that something was wrong, but she didn't know anything, and she felt very bad. "What's wrong? What happened?" The man looked at his frightened wife, then looked at the child in her arms, and comforted her. "Don't be afraid. It might be a car accident. I'll get out of the car to take a look." The man comforted his wife, and stepped out of the car. "Here he comes. Here they come. Beau. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story, and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 506, Fight. A bunch of people had come out to investigate the situation. The unlucky car was less than 50 meters in front of them. The entire roof was flattened, and a dark grey metal ball was pressed on it. The ball was quite large, about 1.5 meters in diameter, with faint radial lines on it, faintly visible under the bright street lights. "Isn't it a street lamp head?" The man hesitated, and subconsciously stopped moving forward. "What the hell is this? Have you called 120? It's useless to call. The car is flattened. There's no way to save it. What bad luck. It's even more congested now." Other car owners were discussing and saying all kinds of things. The man looked at the round ball, not quite understanding where the thing came from. Suddenly, a slight knock sound penetrated the noisy voices and reached the man's ears. Then, the smooth sphere suddenly cracked open a crack, like opening a folding fan, and quickly spread to both sides. Before the onlookers could react, the round ball on the smoking roof suddenly turned into a long strip of beetle more than 2 meters tall. The original spherical surface covered its back, and multiple pairs of tentacles extended from its densely packed body. The head was raised high, and the pointed mouthparts opened and swallowed, and an unknown liquid was drawn inside. Many images were reflected on the 2 pairs of compound eyes, including lights, cars, and dazed people. It pounced forward, and its mouthparts pierced through the chest of a bystander in front of it, and then it stabbed the person in the air, and threw him away as if showing off, making an unpleasant howl. The poor man had not reacted yet and had already returned to his hometown. People only reacted at this time, and they ran away in a rolling and crawling manner, with screams incessant. "Run." When the advanced ship just started to drop the round object, there was a cry of surprise in the main control room, thinking that they were dropping bombs. Under the sky, many cars were driving on the road, and even the elevated road was blocked. No matter where the Z-bomb landed, it would definitely have a huge impact. Who asked them to drive? The chief of the military department slammed the table and ordered the person next to him. "What do you do for a living?" The person next to him was the chief of the evacuation drill in Sigio City. He was full of grievances and was sprayed with saliva in his face, which made him angry. But when he saw the first ball fall on the roof of the car, the steel-framed off-road vehicle was immediately crushed into a discus like a paper shell, and the people inside naturally had no hope of survival, no matter how many fires were extinguished. We were not allowed to drive, and we were asked to walk. He explained weakly, "It's because we didn't do our job well." Fortunately, the ball did not explode after it landed, and it did not affect the surroundings, which made everyone feel relieved. The general also knew that there were many accidents in special situations, and the only thing to blame was those smart and disobedient people. But now it has come to this, what else can I say? As more and more balls fell, many cars were killed. "Talk on the radio, let everyone in the car get off, and walk," the general ordered. The military should send people nearby to guide them to evacuate, quickly. These self-righteous fools. When they are walking, they are surrounded by shade trees and buildings for protection. When they are driving on the road, the surrounding area is open and illuminated by street lights, which is equivalent to setting up targets for those things. Once something happens, the road will be blocked and no one can escape. In the monitoring room, everyone was silent. It is not scary to have stupid teammates, but it is scary to be stupid teammates who are not obedient. The advanced ship was moving forward while throwing iron balls. The main control side could not figure out what they were trying to do, so they could only send troops all the way to chase them along the way. The private car slowly evacuated from the road under the guidance of the military. The road cannot be blocked, and their armor is all behind. It was not until the first ball suddenly turned into a big watermelon worm and poked people everywhere that the atmosphere in the main control room became tense again. Where are the armed forces? Firepower attack. Protect the people to evacuate, the chief shouted. The armed forces of the military had been on standby nearby and came forward with guns. Bullets were fired as if they were free, hitting the watermelon worms with a clang sound and sparks. Ineffective attack. Change bullets. The captain immediately ordered when he found something wrong. He quickly replaced the armor-piercing bullets, and this time the attack was finally effective. It can penetrate when hitting the belly. Although it is just a hole, black liquid can flow out. But the shell on the back, that is, the outer layer of the ball at the beginning, cannot be penetrated. This requires a frontal attack, and it must be beaten into a sieve, leaking liquid everywhere, to solve one. But once it turns to the front, the long mouthparts of the watermelon worm are very dangerous. In addition, there is also the task of protecting the evacuation of the masses. The masses are not in good physical condition, slow, with families to support, and easily weak hands and feet. The people in the military have to take care of both sides, and finally they can't take care of both sides. Soon, the casualties of the soldiers came up. Damn it. The chief looked at the people who were dragging him down and said angrily, but there was nothing he could do. Why do people like to act on their own and not listen to arrangements? Did they eat too much? The advanced ship threw hundreds of balls along the way. When they thought that all the balls were watermelon worms, some of them opened in mid-air, revealing winged worms. This worm looks like a mantis, with 2 pairs of huge serrated sickle arms. They can fly in the air, wielding 4 sickles, and harvest lives more flexibly than watermelon worms. At this time, the tanks also arrived, and bang 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 fired at the sky. Some mantises were hit, while others just avoided it. The shells fell into nearby buildings, leaving huge holes. However, there was no time to care about so much at this time. Protecting the lives of the masses to the greatest extent was the top priority. As long as the Green Mountains remain, there is no fear of running out of firewood. However, because there were many cars blocked on the road, armored vehicles, tanks, and even rocket vehicles were blocked behind and could not move forward for a while. The general gritted his teeth, fearing that he would curse more nasty words. "Where is Xingchen? How long will it take?" he asked after taking a deep breath. 10 minutes to reach the battle circle. The person below replied, after checking the GPS positioning. "Make sure the personnel are cleared, and let the armored vehicles pass." The general ordered with his hands on his hips. "How many people have not evacuated yet? Why are they so slow? There is only this team on the elevated road left." The subordinate reported, "This elevated road is quite long, and it will take some time to go up and down. And there are many cars on the elevated road, so it will take time to clear the road. The elevated road is not low to the ground, and those people can't hang on a rope and slide down like well-trained soldiers. Looking at the hundreds of people running for their lives under the protection of the soldiers, the general finally said nothing and turned his eyes away. Which life is more important, the lives of soldiers or the people? He didn't want to rank them. After all, the meaning of their existence is to defend the country and protect the lives and property of the people. But because of these self-righteous idiots, the well-trained soldiers were injured or even died, and the general felt unwilling. But no matter how unwilling they were, they couldn't let go and leave the people there. Maybe people from other places had evacuated, leaving only a lot of people on the elevated road. The mantises and watermelon worms actually all moved to the elevated road, and even the advance ship flew back. Densely packed mantises gathered and swung their sickles like fans. The soldiers had to hit those above and below, and from time to time they had to pull those who were paralyzed and unable to walk. This was a battle of unequal strength, and many soldiers were injured, or even fell down forever. But no one thought of retreating. The armored vehicles were blocked below, and could not drive up, and the fighter planes could not open fire, because the enemy and us were too close, fearing that they would hit their own people. There were only 20 of them, and their bullets were almost exhausted. The soldiers used their bodies to protect the people behind them, fighting and retreating. Just when they thought they were going to die here, they heard a different sound of breaking through the air. Boom, boom, boom. A black shadow covered the light above their heads, and then several black shadows fell down, and the bridge surface under their feet shook continuously. Everyone thought that watermelon worms fell from the sky again. Looking closely, the standing shadow was a human figure, 3 meters tall, much larger than the worms. The tall body, the cold and hard lines, the smooth shell reflected the light of metal. They turned their backs to the crowd, standing in front of the bugs. The middle-aged man's son had woken up a long time ago, and was now held tightly in his arms. He had obediently followed his parents to escape, and was very quiet along the way, but now he suddenly became energetic, pointed with his little hand, and shouted crisply, "Mecha! It's coming now, right? Unfortunately, casualties have already occurred. There is nothing we can do. The gap in strength is like this. I don't like writing this part. Woo woo woo. Regarding the bugs, I saw a watermelon worm crawling on the ground yesterday. Ha 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 ha, that's it. Speaking of which, where did this bug come from?" Chapter 507, The Mecha arrives. When Xingqian arrived, everyone in the control room breathed a sigh of relief. Song Ren judged the situation at a glance in the air, and asked Lin Fan to lower the altitude. When they were about to pass the crowd, they jumped directly. The bionic armor has a certain floating ability. As long as the balance is controlled, the driver will basically not feel much impact inside. So on the large screen in the control room, wherever Pangu passed, the 10 mechas attached to it jumped down one after another like dumplings. And Xingqian continued to drag Pangu to block the advanced ship moving here. After the bionic armor landed, there was no time to make more adjustments. They immediately attacked the beetles around them, instantly clearing a large space for the people behind them. The soldiers who were ready to fight to the death also breathed a sigh of relief. Who wants to die when they can live? With the support of the Mecha, the situation changed immediately. Compared with the firepower attack of the soldiers, the defense and attack power of the mechas are obviously much greater. In front of the 3-meter high bionic armor, the 2-meter tall beetles seemed to have become smaller. Li Chunhua pressed down the mouthparts of the watermelon worm and stepped heavily on its belly. Maybe it was the belly, because everything below the head looked the same. Anyway, Li Chunhua stepped on the lower middle part of its body, thinking that it would be easy to crush it, but the belly of the worm was stronger than he thought. The watermelon worm seemed to be intelligent. Seeing that the Golden Iron Man had a way to deal with it, it seemed a little proud, and twisted its body to break free. As a result, the other party took out something from his waist, and pointed at it. With a bang, the watermelon worm suddenly exploded like a balloon filled with water. The black juice splashed all over Jin Gang's chest, making Li Chunhua sick. Some of the liquid dripped on the ground and the car body, and light smoke came out. Is this thing corrosive? Li Chunhua was stunned for a moment, and then another watermelon worm pounced on him. Gu. Its juice sprayed on me. How can I get rid of it? Li Chunhua saw a hint of purple in the corner of his eyes. It was the ice wheel driven by GU. GU killed a watermelon worm with one shot, dodged the attack of the scythe above, turned around and saw Jingang holding a watermelon worm's mouthparts, and the two were in a stalemate like wrestling. He couldn't bear to watch it, so he raised his hand and shot. As expected, Lee Chun-hua was splashed again. GU. Lee Chun-hua knocked away the third watermelon worm, and didn't dare to let them get close. This thing seems to be corrosive. GU quickly approached, turned on the engine in his hand, and quickly swept it at the dirty parts of Jingang's body. The black juice was swept away in the blink of an eye. Don't wrestle close to each other, just use the gun. Another mantis flew over his head. GU raised his hand and shot it, piercing its wings. Try not to get those on it, he said, and pounced on the mantis that had just landed. Stepping on its body, grabbing the scythe with one hand, and smashing it hard at the joints with the butt of the gun, directly removing the scythe hand. The mantis roared and flapped its arms, raising its other sickles to resist, but GU caught it quickly and did the same to it, removing another hand. The mantis's body fluids are dark green, unlike the watermelon worms, and do not seem to be obviously corrosive. GU continued to look for the next target, while informing others of the situation. The second generation armor is slightly weaker than the first generation, and mainly deals with watermelon worms on the ground. The first generation armors tacitly took over the more difficult mantises. Gao Fei was right in front of the crowd, and the mecha that the children saw was his blue Yufeng. He jumped and took the initiative to pounce on the big mantis in the sky, grabbing their bodies and holding them tightly. The mantis was caught, so how could it not struggle? It swung its sickle hands tightly, but ended up chopping the watermelon worm. When it realized that it had accidentally chopped its own people, it was too late. The watermelon worm was chopped and juice flowed. Gao Fei took advantage of the mantis's air attack when it was stunned and sent it in front of another mantis sickle, and easily helped the watermelon worm get revenge. Song Ren floated in the air, and with his super fast body movements, he flipped over the mantis, grabbed its flapping wings with both hands, kicked his feet on the back, and tore off the wings. The wingless mantises fell straight to the ground. Their bodies were not as hard as the watermelon worms, and they lost their wings, so the green juice was everywhere. They were not in good condition after landing. They twitched their sickles and tried to struggle, but they were powerless. The passing mecha, no matter who it was, could be dealt with in a few strokes. Even ordinary soldiers could handle it with the guns in their hands. In less than 10 minutes, the situation was reversed. People who had begun to despair rekindled hope. Quick, escort the people to evacuate first. The general knew that the 800 mechas were powerful, but he didn't expect them to be so powerful. Seeing that the crisis was temporarily alleviated, he ordered the people to evacuate first. With so many people on the bridge, when they wanted to launch an attack, they would have to consider their safety, and many strike measures could not be implemented. So whether it was from the perspective of life safety or effective attack, these people must be evacuated as soon as possible. Song Ren took in the overall situation from the air and immediately issued an order to have 3 second generation armors escort the crowd off the bridge. The 4 first generation armors were responsible for clearing the way and advancing under the bridge. The remaining 3 second generation armors were responsible for sweeping the edges. The bugs seemed to know that these people were going to run, and their attacks became more intense. No matter how powerful the mecha warriors were, they could not defeat 4 hands with 2 fists. It was inevitable that there would be times when they were too late to defend. The mouthparts and sickles ding dong dong hit the mecha shell, bringing up bursts of sparks and leaving ugly scratches on the beautiful paint layer. The hardness of the mecha shell was still able to withstand it. Although there were some potholes, there were no holes, and it did not affect the operation. They were stronger than the bugs, but there were too many bugs. There were many people escorting, and they tried their best to protect the people in front of them from being hurt, but after a long time, it was inevitable that they were a little stretched. After the soldiers stopped fighting, they supported those who were not able to walk in the team, and speeded up their journey. They knew better than ordinary people that these mechas could not fight freely to protect them. There were more and more visible scars on the mecha, and most of the time, they only had time to use the mecha's body to block the attack. They had done the same thing before, so they felt the same way, and they were inevitably hurried in their actions. Fortunately, at this time, everyone had experienced life and death, and no one was tactless enough to complain. If they didn't leave now, they would really be unable to leave. There were not many fools who could drive on the elevated road. At this critical moment of life and death, adrenaline soared to the extreme. Even if their hands and feet were weak and their faces were blue, as long as they could breathe, they would run desperately. Soon, some people and children with poor physical fitness gradually became exhausted. In the control room, everyone watched as the group of people gradually distanced themselves. The range of the mecha's protection became larger, the gaps became larger, and their brows frowned. "This won't work." The person in charge, who was spitted on by the chief, said, "We have to think of other ways." The chief looked at another screen. Pangu was placed under the advanced ship by Xingqian. He took slow steps, dozens of meters at a time, and drove the advanced ship away from its original course. Xingqian was about to support Pangu when he was stopped by the chief. "Xingqian, go to the train station. Dismantle a carriage to transport people. The Mecha has arrived." Wow, hahaha, the Mecha that I spent so much time describing is useful now, right? Fight the bugs one by one, hahaha. Baozi has urged me to update these 2 days. I tried my best. I was stuck on this paragraph. I didn't expect this kind of group fight to be so difficult to write. What a mistake. The stories I read before were all about quick travel, love, traveling through books, and rebirth. There are no similar descriptions to refer to. I have an outline, but it's a rough outline. I'm confused when it comes to details, sequence, and so on. Although I have written 1 million words, you can see that I'm more suited to daily chatter. This kind of big fight scene and aliens just make me dizzy. It is different from the previous temporary revision of the outline. That time was tight, and now it seems that I have not read enough. I regret not having read enough books when I need them, but are there any novels on the market that write about this? I'm not talking about the kind that just writes about how great the protagonist is. I'm talking about the kind that is bigger and the protagonist and supporting roles all have their own roles. Anyway, I have had a hard time writing these days. It is a difficult problem that I have never tried before. I feel that it is more difficult than romance. But this paragraph is the climax of the plot and emotions, and I have to write it. So I wrote on the first day, and looked back on the second day. It was not good, so I rewrote it. On the third and fourth days, I felt that it was not good, so I went back to revise it again. Yes, I have saved a few chapters recently, but because of writer's block and frequent revisions, I wrote inefficiently, and there are only 2 chapters left. I hope everyone thinks that the story I finally presented is smooth. Wait until I get over it, and then look back, and smile with my hands on my hips. Chapter 508. The stars are coming. There are 2 train stations in Sijiu City. One is in the city center and the other is in the west. Lin Fan has been to both stations before, and it is very convenient to transfer to the subway. But if she were to go now, she would not be able to find the place, even if it was daylight, let alone in the dark. Fortunately, the navigation map immediately appeared on the eyepiece, which made her feel relieved. At the speed of stars, it would only take a snap to get to the train station. The train station, which was always crowded with people on weekdays, was now empty. Those waiting for the train and those entering the station had long been pulled underground to hide, and the trains that were still on the way directly returned and stopped nearby. There were many things left in the square in front of the station, including bags and shoes. The metal guardrail was opened with a large gap, and the taxis and buses were not parked so neatly, and there was no one inside. Lin Fan flew over the brightly lit empty station, and landed in the station. There are many trains coming and going in Sijiu Station every day, with more than a dozen tracks and platforms. Now, there are several white trains parked quietly by the platform, and the streamlined shells are shining under the bright lights. The picture, which was originally full of technology, now reveals a dead silence. Which car should be dismantled? After Lin Fan landed, he saw cars everywhere, and didn't know how to choose. There are only 100 seats in a high-speed rail car, and the space is not as big as that of the old train. The person in charge is very familiar with this aspect and said, "Tell her to go to the back and find a red or green old-fashioned car, which has much more space. The train is fast, but in order to reduce air resistance, the shape is streamlined and the space is compressed." Everyone also gave it a nice name, the bullet car. But such a narrow car, even if people squeeze to the extreme and stand in it, there will not be more than 300 people in a car. Now it is only used as a transportation container. Regardless of speed, such a car is not the best choice. On the contrary, the old-fashioned car has a large space and is full of people. If the seats and luggage racks are included, a car may be able to fit 400 people. In this way, at least one carriage can be saved. Whether in terms of safety or the convenience of operation of Xinchen, 2 carriages are better than 3 carriages. Lin Fan ran on the platform without saying a word, quickly jumped into the dark track, and quickly searched according to the instructions in the headset. Nowadays, high-speed trains are fast and convenient, and there is no big problem, except that they are expensive. Therefore, most of the shuttle buses on the lines of the train station have been replaced with high-speed trains. Red-skinned express trains are rare, let alone old green-skinned ones. Fortunately, there are many lines at the 49th station, and she quickly found a red-skinned train. "Do you want 2 carriages?" Lin Fan quickly grabbed the buckle at the connection of the train, and with both hands, the heavy buckle was disconnected like the buckle on the bracelet. In the main control room, the commander silently deleted the search for how to disconnect the connection between train carriages. It is easy to dismantle the 2 carriages, and it is not difficult to lift them. Lin Fan tried it, and with the size of Xinchen, the distance between his hands was only more than 3 meters. In other words, her 2 hands could only hold the lower part of the doors of the 2 carriages, because the force-bearing area was only the size of a palm, and there was no place to hold, so the carriages were not very stable. It was like using the fingertips to hold the top of a baton, and it was not easy to achieve horizontal stability. The weight was not a problem, but it was difficult to exert force. If it was just a carriage, of course it didn't matter. Xinchen could drag all the trains at the 49th station into the sky without blinking an eye. But now that the train had to carry people, she couldn't be so casual. It just so happened that there was only one point connecting the 2 carriages, and if you were not careful, they would bend in a V shape. It shouldn't fall, but according to the master control, everyone would have to stand inside and squeeze into human pot stikers. Originally it was a vertical angle, so it would be fine if it was squeezed a little, but once the carriages formed an angle, it would become a stack of people. If hundreds of people were stacked together, injuries would be minor, and it was not impossible for people to be crushed to death. The master control also frowned when he saw that Xinchen tried several times and failed to lift the 2 carriages horizontally at the same time. Stacking the 2 carriages up and down would be more stable, but there were risks if they were not fixed. There was no need to even think about going back and forth twice. The fighting force would be dispersed even more if they were divided into 2 teams. No way. There is a double-decker train parked at the station in Jianxi. Someone suddenly reported. The person in charge rushed over to take a look and was overjoyed. It is indeed a double-decker train. This type of train usually has 180 seats. If we squeeze in, plus the island luggage rack, 1 carriage should be able to accommodate it. So Lin Fan immediately dropped the carriage in his hand and flew to Jianxi. The straight line distance was more than 100 kilometers, and it took more than 10 seconds to get there. It took more than 10 seconds to find the train and dismantle the carriage. In less than a minute, Xinchen returned with the carriage. Xingchen's speed. The general manager couldn't help but clench his fist. It was really enviable. But he, who knew the inside story, could only envy it. Xinchen dragged the train carriage all the way. The double-decker rolled iron sheet felt the speed of a rocket for the first time, and the fragile outer skin began to scratch sparks. The coordinates given by the main control were very clear, and Lin Fan arrived quickly. It took her less than 5 minutes to go back and forth, and a group of people were still fighting and retreating on the bridge. There were a lot of dead insects piled up on the bridge, as well as some cars that had not been driven away in time and some damaged cars. "Clear the road," Lin Fan said, and suddenly stopped above the crowd. She rushed all the way, and the bugs that blocked her way were all smashed to pieces, which saved a lot of trouble. The Mecha below just learned that the train was coming to pick up people for evacuation, and the next moment, Lin Fan arrived. Song Ren quickly asked the 3 people who were cleaning up to throw the cars and dead insects blocking the road off the elevated road, and cleared a space for the carriages. There was no way, no one expected that the people who had been fleeing for a long time could climb onto the roof and enter the carriages quickly, so they had to put them on the ground. The stars fell on the bridge, and Song Ren and the other 4 immediately took their positions at the 4 corners. Although they had not cooperated for a long time, the tacit understanding between them was still there. The 4 mechas each supported a corner, and Lin Fan rolled sideways and evacuated from below. In just 3 seconds, the first generation of mechas suddenly withdrew from the defense line, and the others felt a sudden increase in pressure. The exposed door also gave some bugs another chance to approach. The soldiers were about to raise their guns to continue fighting when they saw a flash of white light in front of them. The entire row of flying bugs that were so arrogant just now were all broken into 2 sections and fell to the ground. The white mecha rolled beautiful gun flowers and its silver dragon-like weapons, with a series of slaps and hooks, instantly cleared all the bugs within a 10-meter range around it. At this time, the 4 people of the first generation armor gently put the carriage on the ground. With a bang, the bridge surface trembled slightly. Hurry up! Song Ren, as the captain, was responsible for the deployment. Binglin smashed the glass at the door with a punch. The soldiers hurried forward to open the door and quickly urged people to enter the carriage one by one. The people who were fleeing didn't know why they had to go in, and they obeyed instinctively. Whether it was mentally or physically, this long half an hour was enough for ordinary people. And hiding in the carriage is always safer than being outside with bare hands, right? The white mecha lifted the carriage and flew down from the sky. With one swing and one release, a large number of insects died. This mecha was the most powerful one. It must have come to rescue them. Smart people, they still have some foresight. If we don't leave now, when will we leave? The carriage was very crowded. No one complained at this time. They all wanted to leave this broken place quickly and enter the carriage. At least they could have a safe shelter for the time being. With such a squeeze, everyone was finally packed in. 2 soldiers squeezed in at the door because the window at the door was broken and they had to stand at the door to block it. The remaining dozens of soldiers couldn't squeeze in and lined up beside the carriage without saying a word, waiting for orders. All the mechas gathered beside the carriage, and the 4 people of the first generation of army used the same trick again to quickly lift the carriage. Xingchen bent down and went in, and pushed up with both hands. The people in the carriage only felt that they were sinking, and then they were lightly lifted up. Then, the lights outside the window flashed quickly, and the speed was much faster than that of the train. Because it was carrying people, Lin Fan didn't dare to fly too high or too fast. It was just right for Song Ren and Li Chunhua to follow on both sides of the carriage and protect them as they moved forward. Below, Jiyu and Gao Fei led others to protect the soldiers to evacuate. The soldiers just had to run, and all the defense was left to the mechas. Without the burden of hundreds of people, they were much faster. Soon, Lin Fan delivered the carriage to the door of the nearest shelter and considerately turned the door to the entrance. Song Ren and the other man stepped forward to support the 2 ends. Lin Fan flew to the top of the carriage, inserted his hands in, stuck the top, and slowly lowered it. There are quite a few people in here, and everything will be in vain if he hits it. The carriage landed, and Li Chunhua watched from the door as people evacuated safely. Lin Fan jumped off the roof of the car, drew out his 2 swords to form a spear, and fought back aggressively. It wasn't easy, and it's finally time for Lin Fan to show his power. I haven't dropped a collection in a long time. I dropped one yesterday. I still have to keep working hard. Chapter 509. First battle victory. Women probably have a natural aversion to insects. If Lin Fan could choose, she would not want to face it. But she could not choose, so she could only suppress her nausea. With a flick of the knife, she killed all the insects with one blow, as easily as cutting a melon. Fortunately, these were in large versions of insects, so although Lin Fan was a little uncomfortable, she did not feel particularly uncomfortable. Thinking back to the past, she had killed quite a few mosquitoes, flies and cockroaches. Although she would occasionally sigh that life is not easy, she still eliminated them without hesitation. Nowadays, these big insects are much more harmful than mosquitoes and flies. Life is not easy, and we cannot let them continue to run rampant. Song Ren killed a mantis in a few strokes, and turned his head, and the surroundings were empty. There were broken limbs and black and green liquids on the ground. The scene was not so good, and Lin Fan had already rushed out a long way with his gun. Song Ren was slightly stunned when he looked at Xingchen, who was agile. He knew that Lin Fan had been practicing hard for a period of time after returning. Lin Fan didn't say it. It was not long after she returned that Wu Yi asked about Lin Fan's recent situation in the group, and Jin Sichen replied. He said that Lin Fan was too tired to get up every day, and it was Wu Yi who brought him down and fed him, so that he could recover. In addition, the old man later designated Lin Fan to accompany him on a visit, so they all knew that Lin Fan must have become stronger. But how strong, they had no idea. Now, seeing the girl who was just about to fight him last winter, it seems that she is already a person from the previous life. Lin Fan's strength has reached a height that they can't reach. So strong that he can't even have the heart to catch up, and can only look up. Song Ren felt a little bitter. The girl who used to shrink beside him. He exhaled, clenched the gun in his hand, and rushed out. The insects that had gathered on the bridge flew away with Lin Fan and his men, and most of them stared at the soldiers who moved slowly and looked easier to bully. Lin Fan strangled all the way back and soon met other people under the bridge. Watermelon bugs blocked the way on the ground, and mantises slashed in the sky. Lin Fan jumped up and jumped into the center of the bugs, using the same momentum as when he beat the cockroaches, swinging his gun tightly. The mechas, who were struggling to resist, watched Xingchen operate like a tiger and move in and out of the bug tide like a dragon. The soldiers opened their mouths wide, watching the densely packed bugs fall quickly and die at an incredible speed. It was really just a blink of an eye. Of course, the interval between these blinks was a bit long. In addition to a few scattered surviving bugs that fell behind and didn't catch up with the big team, there were also bugs scattered in other places that didn't fly over. Xingchen single-handedly solved the difficulties that made them feel laborious. In the control room, after a long silence, a good burst out. The general finally smiled. Good. He patted the table and laughed. Fortunately, we have this treasure, Xingchen. It's okay. Everyone breathed a sigh of relief when they saw this scene and smiled knowingly. With such a powerful weapon, what are you afraid of? I had been worried that the aliens were like Xingchen before, but now it seems that they are not. Even without Xingchen, they can resist, but it will be a little harder and the cost will be a little higher. After a victory in the first battle, the general is full of confidence in the current situation. When Song Ren arrived, Lin Fan had finished the fight and called it a day. The second generation armors were picking up the bugs that had fallen behind to practice. Binglin and Yu Feng stood with Xingchen and were talking to the soldiers with their heads down. Just send it here, the captain said to the white mecha with a smile. We have other tasks below, and we are also clear about the current situation. If we encounter a lone bug, it is not a problem to deal with it. Lin Fan looked around and found Fu Guang not far away and waved to him quickly. She didn't know how to deal with this situation, so it was better for Song Ren to deal with it. Song Ren finally found the familiar feeling again and ran over with a smile. What's wrong? They said they were going to act alone, so we don't need to worry about them anymore. Gu replied. They knew Lin Fan's personality best. It's okay to let her execute, but forget about letting her summarize. Song Ren nodded, lowered his head, and exchanged a few more words with the captain, and then both sides said goodbye. The captain held Fu Guang's hand, thought about it and asked, "Can I know your names? Do you mean our names, or the name of the mecha?" Gao Fei saw that the crisis was resolved, and was in the mood to joke. The captain wanted to ask about the mecha, of course, but it seemed impolite not to ask the driver's name. My mecha is called Fu Guang. Song Ren spoke up to solve the captain's dilemma. As for my name, let's talk about it in person when we have a chance to meet. Okay. I remember. The red mecha is called Fu Guang. The captain smiled and then reported his own name. Fu Guang is mostly red, with a small amount of white and gold on it, and the joints are all black. That kind of red is a very pure red, the same color as a red flag, and it looks friendly. Fu Guan turned to look at Xingqian, and the captain followed him, his eyes full of admiration. I'm Xingqian. Lin Fan nodded slightly. You're a woman. The captain was startled, and then a little flustered. I didn't mean that. I mean, Lin Fan smiled and stretched out his right hand without any concern. Hello. 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 The captain shook hands with both hands. I'm sorry. I'm actually very surprised that you're so powerful. The captain did not discriminate against women. He just really didn't expect that the most powerful Mecha was actually a woman. And from the sound of her voice, she was still very young. Thank you. You're also very powerful. Lin Fan replied with a smile. When she flew over with Panbu, she saw with her own eyes that the captain and his men fought fiercely before they could come to help. The captain's face turned red, looking at the Mecha in front of him that was emitting a white light and decorated with red under the light. He was too stiff to know what to say. Hello, my Mecha is called Binglan. Gu stretched out her hand and attracted the captain's attention. The captain replied hurriedly, glancing at the blue-purple Mecha with small areas of gold and green decorations, and secretly memorized it in his heart. Who is this? Finally, he looked at the Mecha with a blue shell and a small area of white and purple red color matching, and playfully placed the tip of his right foot on the ground to the left of his left foot and posed. My Mecha is called Yufeng. Yufeng for flying in the wind. Gao Fei smiled and emphasized his name. Where is the other one? The captain looked under the bridge. He remembered that there was a golden Mecha that went over with him just now. Why did only to come back? His name is Chingang. He has to wait until the people evacuate from the carriage before he can come back. Song Ren helped Li Chunhua to report his name. The 6 second generations behind him also ran over to report their names. This is the first time they have appeared openly. Thinking that their names can be known by outsiders, they feel happy. The captain exchanged a few more pleasantries and ran away with his men. Lin Fan looked at the others. What should we do now? Go to finish it? The advanced ship threw a ball every other distance, and it was unknown whether there were any remaining insects in other places. Song Ren pondered for a moment, pointed at the 2nd generation armor and ordered, you go back to the elevated road and clear the road first. After a burst of fighting, the already blocked road was simply piled up. Tanks and armored vehicles could not provide timely support. The engineering battalion had already sent people out to clear obstacles. But mechas have a natural advantage in clearing obstacles, such as cars, so of course they would not let them. After the 2nd generation ran away, he pointed to the remaining 3 people. Let's go patrol the surrounding area and check for any gaps. Seeing that Song Ren's distribution was reasonable, the general control did not intervene. The location of the remaining bugs tracked by the sky was directly sent to everyone's eyepieces, and several people acted separately. Is it solved like this? The person in charge sat in a chair, watching the advanced ship evade Pangu's harassment, and not having time to throw bugs, feeling a little incredible. The general manager also felt a little too relaxed. At this time, the old man suddenly spoke. Don't take it lightly. I don't think these bugs can build such an advanced spacecraft. Everyone was stunned. Yes, they have been focusing on the bugs, but they forgot that high-tech spaceships must be made by intelligent creatures. This bunch of bugs are probably just the pioneers. Will the advanced ship have any tricks? Can it be so easy? Haha, it's impossible. I'm a bad guy. I must be miserable in the fight. Have you forgotten what color the 4 first generation armors are? I forgot too, and I turned to the front to check. Haha, I forgot a lot of the front, and I had to turn to the front to find the details. Chapter 510, Holding on to the Hidden Place. The lights in the Zhejiang Central Hospital were bright, except for the corridors outside the outermost outpatient building, where the lights were off. The high-hanging street lamps still emitted bright light, illuminating the courtyard in front of the hospital gate. The light penetrated the dark windows of the building across the courtyard, making the originally dark corridors brighter, and the shadows cast by the walls on the ground were bright and dark. In the shadows, the soldiers who were on high alert were carefully looking out. It was still dark, and under the light, no obvious foreign objects were seen, and the same was true for the ground. There was no sound in this area, and it was so quiet that only their own breathing remained. "Captain," a young soldier couldn't help but whispered, "are there really aliens?" The captain glared at him, but unfortunately, in the dark, his eyes couldn't convey it. "What's true or false?" He was fierce and scolded in a low voice. "Many of our brothers have died because of those bugs. Do you still think this is an exercise? You guys should keep your skins tight. If you are chased by the bugs, don't say it's your soldiers. The General Control has informed the combat readiness teams of the situation of the bugs in a timely manner, but some things are still hard to imagine if you haven't seen them with your own eyes. Aliens? Isn't that something that only appears in science fiction movies? How did they suddenly appear?" The little soldier didn't disbelieve it, but he just found it unbelievable. "Hide well. If anyone makes a mistake and the bugs find out that there are people here, they will turn around and attack the hospital. I will deal with you later," the captain ordered again in an angry voice. When life and death are at stake, no one can still speak softly. The casualty rate of the first wave of contact is not low. He doesn't want his soldiers to lose their lives because of laxity. "Don't worry, Captain, we all know that those bugs only chase living people and they won't be discovered by them," another voice whispered in the dark. According to the latest report, these alien bugs seem to be only interested in people who are active outside, and they chase them relentlessly. On the contrary, they have no tendency to destroy buildings such as high-rise buildings, bridges, or squares. Most of the buildings in the 49th city are brightly lit. In theory, don't bugs have a tendency to be attracted to light, like moths to flames? But the army of bugs seems to have no interest in these things at all, and keeps chasing people who are active outside. According to the statistics of the Sky Eye, most of the damage to the buildings in the 49th city is the impact damage caused by the battle with the bugs. A tank blasts and leaves a hole. A fighter plane's bullets fall on the ground and leave a row of craters. The direct damage caused by the bugs is only the cracked ground and cars when they fall to the ground, and the corrosion caused by the splashing of watermelon bug juice. It is not even as big as the damage caused by the military itself. After research, the people in the control room roughly determined that this wave of bugs was going for people. As long as the people who didn't have time to evacuate hide well, and don't let the bugs find any signs of human activity in the building, they should be able to ensure safety to the greatest extent. Yes, there are still many people in the city who have not evacuated. Most of the ordinary residents who are resting at home and participating in group activities can evacuate to the underground shelter in an orderly manner. However, there are still some people who are unable to move or have to stick to their posts. There are still many people who cannot evacuate immediately. For example, in the hospital, those patients who are not suitable for movement, those who are seriously ill, and even those who are still undergoing surgery in the operating room, are all still in the hospital. If the sky falls, it is impossible for the doctor to abandon the patient who is halfway through the operation and run away, right? What's more, there is only a crisis now, and it has not really affected the hospital. Because of this special reason, the military immediately sent people to hide in the outpatient building. In order to hide, they also turned off the lights, so that it is not easy to find their whereabouts from the outside. They can attack when they advance and defend when they retreat. When there is no situation, they hide and pretend that the hospital is empty like other buildings, and wait for the right time to help the people inside evacuate. If they are really unlucky and insects invade here, they can also organize resistance in the first time to protect the people still in the hospital. Of course, in addition to hospitals, there are also some research sites, experimental bases, etc. that cannot be evacuated completely. These places have also sent people to guard the periphery carefully, and even the entrances of all shelters are guarded by armed forces. A few days ago, the old man had specially approved the plan of strengthening the external defense infrastructure system against alien attacks, but all this can only be implemented after Grow evacuates. Suddenly, a huge shadow flew in the distance, and soon revealed its full appearance to the people in the window. It didn't fly very fast, like a sightseeing boat in the city of Sijiu. The huge mechanical body can feel its huge oppression even in the case of insufficient light at night. At first glance, I thought it was an aircraft carrier that went to the wrong place and went to play in the sky of Sijiu City. let alone other technological capabilities or insect armies. If this thing falls, it can smash half of the hospital into ruins. The soldiers finally witnessed the alien forces with their own eyes, but they didn't feel the joy of getting an answer. Watching the spaceship approaching the hospital, their hearts were pounding, but they didn't forget to hide themselves and hold their weapons tightly. Then, there was a vibration under his feet. Pangu's huge head appeared from the gap between the tall buildings. It didn't move very fast, but because of its height and length, it could take a long step and just catch up with the slow-moving spaceship in the sky. Its hands were still very high when it raised them, and it could almost reach the height of the spaceship dangling in the sky with a slight jump, while causing a considerable vibration on the ground. He waved his arms, and seemed to inadvertently drive the slow-moving spaceship away, and went in the opposite direction of the hospital. Everyone breathed a sigh of relief. "Is that our Mecha?" someone asked softly, when they could no longer see their shadows. The news of the Mecha was also reported to the insect army behind them. Although they had never seen it, there was no doubt that this fact could be distinguished at a glance. "Yes, this is the largest Mecha," called Pangu. The captain's voice was no longer so fierce, and there was even a hint of pride. "There are also some single-person mechas, and their strength is also very strong. I wonder if we will have a chance to see them?" "Yes, yes." The soldiers were happy for a while, and couldn't help but whisper. "Silence." The captain suddenly became stern again. "Don't think about those things. It's not a good thing to see a single-man Mecha. They are the first emergency team, and usually appear in the most dangerous places." The soldiers paused. "No one wants danger to come around. Okay, our mission is to guard the hospital," the captain said in a deep voice. "Once the mission is successfully completed, there will always be a chance for you to see it." I don't know who chuckled, and then the hospital corridor returned to silence. In the main control room, the bosses looked at the screen. The advanced ship seemed to be troubled by Pangu, and hadn't thrown anything down for a long time. But it dodged left and right, but never took off or accelerated away. The bosses frowned silently. Is it because the insect army has been exhausted? Or is it holding back a big move? Guess what it is? Hahaha, I'm a bad guy. This is just the beginning. Chapter 511 A new round of attacks. The second wave of attacks came very quickly. Lin Fan and his men were busy destroying the scattered bugs. According to the distribution of strength, Xingqian naturally took over the vast majority. She still had a few clearing points left, and the others had already completed their tasks. According to the order of the general control, they first went to meet up with Pangu and prepare to encircle the advanced ship. Halfway through, the advanced ship began to drop things down again. "What kind of bug is it this time?" Li Chunhua frowned and asked while running. "If they don't mash these bugs into pieces, they won't be killed completely. Such a huge body, and those sticky juices. It's not only women who feel disgusted, but also strong men." On the screen of the general control, everyone stared at the latest black shadow that fell. "Zoom in," the general ordered. Although the black shadow was blurry in the night sky, judging from the outline, it didn't look like a sphere. Soon, everyone gasped in unison. Song Ren and his men received the report. "What? Bugs riding bugs?" Gao Fei exclaimed in surprise. Song Ren was silent. Even Jiu, who had the highest IQ, did not expect such a combination. "Yes, the current batch of bugs are all bugs riding on bugs. The bug below looks a bit like a cockroach. Of course, it is also an enlarged version, and seems to be only responsible for flying. There is another bug standing on it. Maybe a person." "What? Can't tell the species?" Song Ren ran all the way in the middle of the building. "I can't tell." The main control reported. "The standing one does look like a bug, but its head and body are distinct, and it is still a person standing on the cockroach." The watermelon bug before could also stand like a person, but there was only one under the head, and when it walked, it was the pile of legs on its, but that moved forward, and it didn't look like a human. As for the big mantis, although it is much more powerful, it is completely impossible to associate it with a human. I don't know if the guys who came out this time are compared with the bulky cockroach mounts below, but the guys who are standing on top and flexibly controlling them always feel that they are not as simple as ordinary big bugs. The second batch of bugs that came out quickly dispersed. Pangu has been unremittingly carrying out the orders of the General Control, sticking to the advanced ship tightly. On the way, he did not forget to pick up a few insect knights and crush them to death. This thing is harder than the previous 2 insects. Pangu driver reported to the General Control in time. The struggling form is similar to that of a human. I suggest that we pull a few specimens for a search. The previous 2 insects have been collected, and now this. The General Control looked at the insect knights that were crushed by Pangu. It's not easy to collect. I can't do it. You should wait for other mechas. Pangu driver said helplessly. Pangu is too big. Now these insects are pinched in his hands, and they are no different from ordinary insects on Langsing. A light pinch will leave only dregs. How can they be worth studying? Lin Fan received the latest instructions when he finished the first wave of work. Insect Knight. She looked at the broken limbs on the ground and wondered if her actions were too extreme, but the power of the stars is already strong. These magnified insects are no different from ordinary insects in front of her, except that they are bigger. The strength of the bugs was too low, and she accidentally got into this situation. Over there, Song Ren and his companions had already started fighting with the new enemy. The big cockroach had a black body, with its wings spread out, and was as thin as a triangular hang glider. It flexibly flapped its wings, swinging the person on its back left and right, but its broad body was a large ramming device. When it brushed past the edge of the building, it destroyed the seemingly solid building like cutting tofu. Have they changed their strategy? The general frowned. Have they started to destroy the building? That's bad. The advanced ship and Pangu were going to chase them. With so many bug knights, even if all the mechas were on top, including the stars, it would be impossible to deal with them all at once. If those cockroaches that were not taken care of were committed to destroying the building. Song Ren and his companions didn't think too much and rushed up as soon as they saw the enemy. On the screen, the red Fuguan climbed to the top of the building in a few steps, and while the bug knight was flying down, he jumped onto the cockroach's back. The cockroach suddenly sank down, and the bug knight standing on it immediately turned around. Only when you get closer can you see clearly that there is a bug or a person on the back of the cockroach that looks like a fly. It is pitch black, but it has a bronze metallic luster. There are 2 large compound eyes on its head and a pincer-like mouthpiece at its mouth. Its body is also covered with a hard shell, but it has no wings on its back. Maybe that's why it needs the help of the cockroach to fly. After he found the light behind him, he loosened his hand holding the cockroach's antennae. The clawed hand with only 3 fingers pulled out something like a gun from the outside of his thigh and pointed it fiercely. How could Song Ren let it succeed? He grabbed his slender wrist, pressed his upper body forward, stretched his foot over to hook the opponent's calf, and hooked it back. Fell. In close combat, the H countrymen definitely have an overwhelming advantage. It seems that this advantage not only applies to the friends inside Langsing, but also to aliens, who come from afar. Before the flyman could react, he fell on the back of the big cockroach. Then a strong force hit him, and he began to roll passively. He fell off the cockroach's back. The cockroach that lost control would naturally not take the initiative to save him. He had to cling to his opponent who was also falling. When their eyes met, a strong force came from his abdomen, and he was kicked away. The flyman could only watch the abdominal segments on the cockroach's belly getting farther and farther away from him, while the person who pulled him down started the thrusters and flew up again. Song Ren's success was not so easy to copy, so Lee Chun-hua started a hard fight. His golden gang was all golden, and when it was illuminated by the light, everything was golden. Want to launch a sneak attack without making any noise? Impossible. Lee Chun-hua finally pounced on a big cockroach at a low altitude and dragged its feet to make a hard landing. He didn't know whether the big cockroach was injured or not, but the flyman on it was defeated. Lee Chun-hua despised the poor quality of these guys and pressed them over without hesitation. The flyman tried to get up by rolling and crawling, but he was not as fast as Lee Chun-hua. The outer shell of the Mecha and the outer shell of the flyman collided with each other, making a harsh sound. Lee Chun-hua looked down and saw that the golden outer armor with 818 coating could only leave deep scratches on the other party. It seems that the hardness of the flyman's shell is very high. The flyman was trying to escape, but the golden gang pressed him firmly and followed the cricket pupa, not letting him go. It escaped. he chased, and it couldn't fly away. The two big guys rolled a layer of dust on the ground, entangled and fluttered like two children fighting. The people in the control room couldn't bear to watch this scene. High-end mechas and aliens fight like this? Fortunately, hard work pays off. Lee Chun-ho finally found a gap and punched the flyman from the belly to the face. While the opponent was still confused, he twisted his head hard. The first blood was obtained. The second wave of attack arrived. Everyone has a role, but they want to be different. I'm numb. I don't have much education. Oh. Chapter 512 Eggs. Unlike Lin Fan, who slacked off in training after returning from a visit, lived a carefree life, and occasionally went on missions with random thrills, the Mecha pilots of 623 have been persevering in boring and high-intensity training. There are many types of training, which can be summarized as self-quality training, mecha upgrade and adaptation exercises, and combat training. As mentioned before, mechas were developed as weapons. It is impossible to be satisfied with just basic movements such as proficient walking, sitting, and lying. Therefore, when Lin Fan was there, the mecha combat project that already existed was carried out even after she left, becoming a reserve training project. Compared with fighting with Xingqian, fighting between bionic mechas is obviously much easier. In this nearly 1 year of separation, even the second generation mecha pilots can skillfully operate the mecha to perform various subtle movements, as if they are as flexible as their own bodies. Not to mention controlling the mecha to fight. If they want, they can dance ballet and disco. Fighting mechas is never gentle. The hard outer armor rubs against each other, leaving many scars. Many defects and unreasonable places that only appear during attacks were discovered by the team members, and they are constantly adjusting and modifying them. The process of repeatedly modifying and melting the mecha shell has made the manufacturing and assembly level of Group 623 rise sharply. The development of the third generation armor has long been on the agenda and is being carried out quietly. In addition, some new technologies obtained from the World Tree were also applied to the mecha in a timely manner. The overall performance of the bionic armor has been raised again. However, due to the lack of matching suitable materials, the third generation armor is still in the prototype stage for the time being. Only the selection of drivers has been launched. CUI Yan means that we must be aware of danger in times of peace. The drivers of the first two generations of mechas have no substitutes. In case someone cannot drive the mecha, someone must be able to replace them in time. So for now, leaving aside the stars, these 10 bionic armors can be regarded as the highest individual combat power of each country. Among them, the first generation armor has stronger performance and the personal quality of the driver is also more outstanding, leading the second generation armor. In terms of team battles, the 4 people of the first generation armor completely beat the 6 people of the second generation armor. When these 10 people go out together, the impact of the attack can be imagined. Even if Xingqian confronted them, as long as Lin Fan was reluctant to kill him, he would not be able to get away with it. Xingqian was like this, not to mention those insect soldiers. The huge size and hard shell of watermelon worms and mantises were an insurmountable gap for ordinary soldiers, but in front of mecha warriors, although they were still terrifying, they could easily fight back in 1vs1. After the initial psychological adaptation period, the mecha warriors immediately found the previous actual combat feeling, quickly suppressed the offensive of the first wave of invaders, and successfully prevented a small-scale massacre. If there were not too many insects, they only had 10 people in total, and the battle would have ended earlier. Seeing that the insects were completely wiped out and all the personnel were safely transferred, everyone felt a sense of accomplishment. But the crisis above was not resolved, and several people did not dare to slack off. Sure enough, soon, the second wave of attacks came quickly. After the second generation mechas cleared the obstacles on the road and the armored vehicles blocked under the bridge were unimpeded, they quickly joined the new resistance process. The mecha's resistance was naturally clean and neat, and other equipment forces also rushed up. Armored vehicles, tanks and other heavy equipment drove on the city roads. Because they were too destructive to buildings, they would not open fire unless they had to. As special combat readiness, they flexibly followed the large forces to advance. They took on most of the work of mopping up the mechas on the ground. Relatively speaking, the more maneuverable fighters have already launched attacks. They are also afraid of destroying buildings and dare not shoot. They can only shoot at cockroach mounts and fly people at a close distance. The big cockroaches are probably related to the cockroaches on Langsing and have the same property of being difficult to kill. The black hard armor is difficult to penetrate. But compared to the fly people who would pull out guns to fight back, the cockroaches that only act as mounts are still relatively friendly. The fly people's guns are obviously different from Langsing's guns. There are no bullets, no recoil, and a long range. The two fighter planes were hit silently. Fortunately, the pilots jumped quickly and had comrades to cover them, so they were able to land on the ground in danger. The fighter planes kept aiming at the BUBU while dodging, which had a certain blocking effect, but the attack power was still quite limited. After a period of ineffective attacks, one of the fighter planes accidentally hit the side and lower abdomen of the big cockroach. In an instant, countless small black balls fell down like marbles mixed with splashing juice. Looking at the cockroach with a broken belly, it seemed to be fine and was still flying steadily. If the fighter pilot had not had excellent eyesight and was sure that he had pierced its belly, I would have thought it had defecated in midair. Hurry, hurry, hurry. Let the ground be careful to avoid it. The chief began to slap the table again. What the hell is this airdrop? The black marbles inevitably reminded people of explosive items. The armored vehicles and ordinary armed forces on the ground quickly hid to the side, and the soldiers also fell to the ground to prevent the impact of the explosion. As a result, a bunch of black beads hit the ground, and apart from cracking the ground and leaving several deep pits, there was no sound for a long time. The bomb disposal team car moved forward, and the bomb disposal team members approached fully armed. The black ball lay quietly at the bottom of the pit, the size of an egg. The bomb disposal team members did not dare to be careless, and carefully scanned it with the instrument. "This is not a Z bullet," he shouted with wide eyes. Soon, the scanned image was transmitted to the main control room. "Is it an insect egg?" The general manager quickly connected with the entomologist. "It looks like it in structure, but in terms of shape, it has never been seen on Langsing." The entomologist, who was still unclear about the situation, said after carefully observing the photo. The general manager also sent the screenshot of the watermelon worm's bowl and a relatively complete photo of the watermelon worm's corpse. "Will it be able to turn into a spherical shape like this insect?" the general manager asked again. The entomologist was instantly interested in the insect he had never seen before and wanted to ask a few more questions, but seeing the general manager's serious face, he shut up and studied it carefully. After a while, he shook his head and said affirmatively, "No, I can basically confirm that the previous one is an egg structure. Look at this outer membrane." The entomologist's argument was well reasoned. Although it was a creature that had never been seen before, there were common biological characteristics. Speaking of insects, no one present was more familiar with it than the expert who had studied insects all his life. Although there were too many uncertainties, the general decided to believe it. If it is an egg. He narrowed his eyes. Throwing insects down is to kill. Throwing eggs. He knew without thinking that the eggs could be hatched under certain conditions. Looking at the huge cockroach on the screen, it was still flying steadily in the sky with its stomach pierced. It would only fall out of control if it lost the control of the flyman. The cockroach fell to the ground and smashed a deep pit and did not move, not knowing whether it was dead or alive. The mechas removed its head just in case, thinking that it must be dead, right? So they ignored its huge body. But if its stomach is full of such eggs? The general's eyebrows jumped and ordered in a deep voice, "Search these insect eggs. Find every one of them, and the bellies of the cockroaches that have fallen to the ground. Burn them with fire." Why did I write about wars and insects? Wow, I regret it. It's so hard to write. I dug myself one hole after another. If I had known I would write a romance novel. Compared with this, I can instantly think of 10 ways for a domineering CEO to do a wall bang. Okay, it's just a difficult problem. Face it head on, overcome it, defeat myself, and then I win. I feel like I have been on the road to defeating myself while writing this novel. Various situations that I have never encountered before. I hurriedly overcame them, and then looking back, it really feels different. Don't give up. You can't give up. The next stage will be better. Cheer yourself up. My dears, don't dislike it, hehehe. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 513 Struggle. When Lin Fan first saw the flyman riding on the big cockroach, he immediately thought of the green turtle. It's not that the two look very similar. The green turtle is different from Xingqian, but the black scales close to the body inner armor, the straight and sharp outer armor, the various sharp joints, the overall outline structure. At first glance, you can tell that it is a relative of Xingqian. The flyman is completely different. Although its outer armor is also hard, it is mostly arc-shaped. It looks like a fly that has mutated and grown to more than 2 meters tall, but it is not exactly the same. Not to mention the lack of wings. He also does not have the thin and thorny feet of a fly. 2 hands and 2 legs, although they are very thin. Unlike ordinary people, you can feel that the outer shell is not like a thin hemp stick. On the contrary, there are many structures at the joints, which obviously feel very similar to humans. Although it has only 3 fingers, the posture of holding the gun is no different from that of the Langsing people. They stand on the back of the cockroach and pull the cockroach's antennae to control its flight. That feeling. Lin Fan couldn't be sure whether it was a mutated bug or a person wearing bug-shaped armor. Such uncertainty made Lin Fan a little overwhelmed. The scene of her killing the green turtle reappeared in her mind. Although she was forced by the situation at the time, and she was not at fault, killing, for a kind-hearted person, it is impossible not to have a burden. Not to mention Lin Fan, who is sensitive and prone to overthinking. Although with the passage of time, coupled with the effect of the bracelet, many emotions have indeed faded. But every time she thinks of it, the scene is still vivid. She seemed to be back to the beginning, panting, aching all over, shaking with blood on her hands, tightly inserting the turtle gun into the heart of the green turtle, nailing him to the ground, until he regained his human form. Lin Fan had long forgotten what that person looked like, but the panic feeling of her heart beating like thunder seemed to have returned. She took a deep breath. Facing the flyman in front of her, she didn't know what to do. She could smash the big bug to pieces without hesitation, but she felt it difficult to do it to the enemy, who might be a human. Although she knew it was not a good thing. But the image of the green turtle piercing her chest kept disturbing her in her mind. She, Lin Fan, had lived for more than 30 years, and had never killed even a chicken. She usually killed mosquitoes and flies, and killed some ants, when she was a child, which was her biggest sin of killing. If the situation was not critical and others would be killed, if she didn't kill the green turtle, she would not have been able to do it. And the psychological impact caused by this would be unforgettable for her whole life. Are the fly people human? Lin Fan's mind was confused. One voice said to kill them, they are all bad things. Another voice said, kill people, can you do it? Xingqian, what's wrong with you? The voice of the main control came from the headset, your heart rate is accelerating. Lin Fan's hesitation was actually a matter of a moment. She was still rushing forward without stopping. If it weren't for the main control connected to their physical data, she would not be able to see her abnormality at all. It's okay. Lin Fan didn't know what to say. Could it be that she couldn't do anything to the enemy? The flyman riding on the big cockroach also noticed Xingqian approaching rapidly and drew his gun and shot. Lin Fan saw a tiny, barely perceptible donut-like thing formed by the distortion of the air flying out from the muzzle and gradually getting bigger and flying towards her, and her eyes narrowed. Was the fighter plane attacked by this thing before? If it weren't for Xingqian, she might not have seen it. But no matter how fast the attack was, it couldn't be faster than Lin Fan's speed. She raised her hand and blocked the thing with the tip of the gun. In the control room, only a spark suddenly flashed on the tip of Xingqian's long gun on the screen, and asked hurriedly, what is it? Lin Fan quickly glanced at the tip of the gun without even a scratch, and replied, their weapons may have emitted some kind of wave-like attack. If I have to describe it, I think of smoke rings, which get bigger after being exhaled. Of course, their speed is much faster. All kinds of intelligence detected must be reported to the control room in a timely manner. and they will summarize and distribute it to each person, so as to maximize the connection of information about unknown creatures. Is Xingqian damaged? The control room quickly recorded and asked again. No, it seems that such attacks have no effect on me. Lin Fan had already rushed to the flyman who attacked her. When she raised her gun and stabbed forward, she paused for a moment, but changed her trajectory and used the gun to slap the man away. Watching the flyman fall from the big cockroach, she comforted herself with the tip of her tongue against her upper palate. As long as she didn't stab him to death on the spot, it wouldn't be considered as her killing. The flyman's outer armor is hard, and if he is lucky, he may not die on the spot after falling from mid-air. Usually, the ground corpse collecting logistics team will clean up for them. A good flyman is too hard for them to chew, but a flyman and cockroach that is half crippled and can't get up is equivalent to giving them heads. Easy, safe, and can also practice. In this situation, the main control has informed all mechas, and they don't have to track and deal with the fallen enemies. So Lin Fan was quick-witted and thought of this trick. Although she couldn't escape the death of the flyman in the end, it reduced her psychological burden to the greatest extent. After the flyman fell, Lin Fan stepped directly on the big cockroach. Pulling its tentacles, which were as thick as reins, she tried to control it. How is it? The chief control was stunned. Can it be operated like this? It shouldn't be telepathy or anything. It's just using the tentacles to control the direction and up and down, which is similar to pulling a carriage. Lin Fan replied. The big cockroach didn't seem to have much intelligence and didn't react to the change of the controller on its back. Lin Fan could easily control it to fly according to his own ideas with a light pull. If it weren't for the current scene, this flying experience would actually be good. Lin Fan originally thought that it would be a good thing to be able to control the cockroach, but after actually controlling it, she found that it was too slow. The advanced ship was still releasing insects continuously, and she didn't have time to slowly drive the insects to land safely here. Sighing in her heart, she let go of the tentacles, stepped on the cockroach's head with one foot, and fell heavily. Before reaching the ground, she slid sideways and cut off the head. The chief control had said before that they would keep the research specimens and asked them to keep the body as complete as possible. Fortunately, the cockroach's body is strong, and it didn't break, even after falling from such a height, but there was inevitably another pit on the ground. Lin Fan didn't delay, and rushed up again. From the corner of his eye, he saw that the corpse collecting team that had just dodged to the side quickly surrounded him. The staff of the main control used the sky eye to monitor the position of each mecha in real time, and at the same time, informed the ground of the number and location of the places that needed to be cleaned up. The team that had been following closely on the ground played a very efficient coordination efficiency at this time. Although they had never done it before, after a few runs, they had a tacit understanding. The mecha in the sky was responsible for sending the semi-remnants down, and the corpse collecting team on the ground was responsible for various logistics. Among them, the logistics personnel below Lin Fan were the largest, because she was really fast. The aliens in the sky kept falling down like dumplings. The ground area commander was happy at first that the frontline capabilities on his side were outstanding, but soon he was no longer happy. Master Control, request support. We don't have enough people in our area. It's the struggle of human nature. Anyway, if you give me a knife, I don't even dare to cut a mouse. Most people don't dare, right? Except for the case of cerebral congestion. Lin Fan's growth requires a process. Chapter 514. Half of the energy. The advanced ship was wandering leisurely over the deserted Sigio city. Although Pangu was constantly interfering from below, it was impossible to launch a fire attack because it was in the city and had to take into account the surrounding buildings. So basically, apart from interfering with the advanced ship's direction of travel, it could not cause any substantial damage to it. I don't know if the advanced ship saw through Pangu's trump card. As if deliberately provoking, it neither rose nor accelerated. It just hovered above Pangu, wandering in a position where it seemed to be able to touch it with an arm, as if fishing for Pangu. Pangu watched its soldiers continuously, but there was nothing he could do. The driver gritted his teeth. His task was to drive this broken thing to the suburbs. There were few buildings and open terrain over there, so there was no need to worry about damaging the infrastructure in a fight. Thinking of this, he sighed. It's not a good thing for a city to be too big. If it were any other small city, it might have reached the suburbs by now. But Sigio City is really too big. The suburbs are beyond the 7th ring road. Pangu looked at the location mark on the map, spat, and continued to swing his arms. Just treat this shit like a pig. Damn it, a gentleman's revenge is never too late. It's just that these insects are everywhere. I hope the Mecha brothers of 623 can be more powerful. These insects. Gao Fei stabbed a flyman's neck with a triangular thorn and pulled it out. He looked at the yellow juice spurting out with disgust and kicked the collapsed opponent down. What did they eat to grow up? They are all so hard. The Mecha submachine gun bullets can only work on the abdomen of the first batch of insects, which is a relatively soft spot. The bullets have poor penetration effect on the hard shells in other places, so it's better to tear them directly by hand. But the structure of the flyman is different from those mutant big insects. Its whole body is covered with hard shells. Its joint structure is also different from that of other insects. It is not a slender limb and connection point, so it is definitely impossible to tear it apart. At the beginning, no one could find their weaknesses, so they could only surrender their guns and throw them down from mid-air. If you are lucky, you will fall to death directly. If you are unlucky, at least you will lose your mobility and no longer pose any threat. In other words, Lee Chun-ho accidentally discovered that the neck is a weak point. But even though the weakness is found, it is not easy to kill the enemy easily. The neck of the flyman is basically covered by the carapace of the head and shoulders, and it can only be exposed when the head is greatly deflected. In this case, you either have to suppress it completely like Lee Chun-ho and then break its head to kill it, or you can attack it at close range and let it expose its neck and then directly damage it. At this time, although the bullet can also kill with one shot, it is completely inferior to the triangular thorn in terms of operating distance advantage and convenience. This triangular thorn is forged from a turtle gun. After the turtle gun was melted, the shell and submachine gun of the second generation armor were coated. In the end, there was a little left, just enough for each person to have a triangular thorn, which can be used alone or combined with the head of the macro gun. In this way, cold weapons, hot weapons, close range and long range attacks can all be covered, plus the defense of the mecha after coating. It can basically be regarded as the most comprehensive design within one's ability. The penetration and damage effects of the triangular thorns are much stronger than those of ordinary daggers, not to mention that they are improved triangular thorns with spiral structures. A blood hole is made when it is stabbed, and blood spurts out directly when it is pulled out, almost killing with one blow. The bionic armors of 623 are now using this method to attack. Although it is very effective, the hardness of the hands when piercing the neck still makes their whole arms numb. Fatigue and exhaustion have accumulated, and they have to change hands from time to time to give the other arm a proper buffer time. After a long time, even the gods can't help complaining. If the shell of the bionic armor hadn't borrowed the materials of 818 and the turtle gun, it would not even be as fragile as these insects. Isn't it frustrating to say, you can't eat what they eat to grow up? Jiu's cold voice came over, followed by a huge boom. That was the sound he made when he stepped on the big cockroach to the ground. Before the dust and smoke cleared, he cut off the cockroach's head neatly and rushed up again. What are you talking about? Lee Chun-ho's voice interrupted. How do you know it's impossible if you haven't tried it? What if you can eat it? No one answered for a while, and the headphones were filled with the sound of panting and metal collision. Jiu pulled out the triangular thorn without changing his expression and threw the flyman down mercilessly. Looking at the display, the energy value that was already more than half frowned. Lin Fan's side seemed to be very efficient, but because she couldn't kill the flyman, although she killed a lot of individuals, her kill rate was not as high as other mechas. After all, the flymen who had fought against her, except for those who fell to death by themselves, the others were handled by ground logistics. The chief had discovered this problem long ago. He frowned for a moment and soon relaxed again. This operation did not affect the result, and it also gave the people on the ground a chance to practice. Overall, he didn't have to force Xingqian to kill the flyman. Maybe the situation is better than expected, or maybe Xingqian is really strong. The chief is quite tolerant of Lin Fan. He realized that this girl seemed to still have innocent ideas. If possible, he also hoped that she could always maintain this innocent kindness. Is it possible? The chief chuckled. Z field is always the place where a person can transform the fastest. Chief, 800 connection. Someone reported. Take it. The chief thought clearly and said seriously. Cui Yan's dead face appeared on the big screen, and he said straight to the point. Reporting to you, the energy of the bionic armor has exceeded half. If the attack continues, when the energy reaches a bottom, I personally suggest that the ground armed forces need to be strengthened in advance. The people in the control room could not understand the data on the Mecha and could only rely on the cameras of the Mecha and the Sky Eye to grasp the situation and issue instructions. So no one noticed this situation. The energy of the Mecha can support more than this time, right? It's only been. The chief looked at the time and said sternly, more than an hour. Where's Pangu? How's its energy situation? Pangu is still halfway on the way. If it can't get the ship to the suburbs, it will run out of energy and will be stranded. Not to mention launching thermal weapons attacks. Even the most basic driving function will be useless. Aren't these mechas said to be powerful? The chief was furious, but he quickly sobered up when he saw the mechas killing the enemies on the big screen. It's still powerful, just at this time. Pangu has sufficient energy. It is large in size, so the energy blocks are sufficient. After landing, it will just walk and swing its arms, so what you are worried about will not happen. Cui Yan's facial expression did not change at all when facing the chief. The normal standby time of the bionic armor is about 7 hours, and daily training is also carried out in a normal environment. He continued to explain, but you saw this attack. The insects are very hard, and puncturing or tearing in this case will increase energy consumption. In addition, the long-term use of the jet device will consume more energy. Originally, the Mecha was equipped with solar energy and thermal energy absorption and conversion devices to replenish energy. But as you can see in the current situation, it is completely unusable. After fighting for so long, it is not yet 5 o'clock. The sun rises late in December, so no matter whether it is solar energy or thermal energy, it is useless. Based on the current usage, the usage time of 10 bionic armors is about 1 hour. Cui Yan's cold voice came again. Even if this wave of attacks ends, we cannot be sure whether there will be another wave of attacks, and whether the next wave of attacks will be stronger. 800, as the owner of the Mecha, recommends that you make plans early. Yes, the Mecha is running out of energy. Wahaha, what should I do? Chapter 515 Advanced Ship Number 2. Lin Fan didn't know that her good friends were about to leave, and when that happened, all the pressure would be concentrated on her alone. She was still happily pulling the flyman down, then stood on the big cockroach's head and scratched its neck, then kicked it hard. The cockroach without a head fell straight to the ground. She didn't even need to look down. She knew that the ground logistics had already rushed up. Lin Fan pulled, stood, scratched, and kicked one after another, pulling, standing, scratching, and kicking. The guilt in her heart gradually faded away in the smooth mechanical movements. She felt like she had really become a machine without emotions. She had long forgotten the number of enemies she had defended, but she felt that tonight's night was particularly long. The Space Administration Center issued a new warning. The bottom of the grow is open again. Please pay attention to all units. In the control room, everyone's eyes moved away from the Mecha warriors, who were still in order, and turned to the giant spaceship in space. After a while, another behemoth was exposed to everyone's vision. It was exactly the same as the advanced ship that was still floating over the 49 city. It did not stay in space for long, and was heading for Lansing with a clear purpose. They were going to reinforce. Everyone's heart skipped a beat. The current battle situation in 49 city was still good. But after a while, the 10 mechas would be offline one after another, because of exhaustion of energy. It was hard to say whether Xingqian could control the whole situation by then, and now there was another enemy ship with sufficient combat power. The general quickly checked which teams could be quickly deployed for support. He had just deployed the teams on standby near 49 City and asked them to march to 49 for support, but now it seemed that it was not enough. The people in the military quickly discussed in a low voice, and before they could come up with the results, they heard the people from the space agency issued another warning. The heading of the advanced ship number 2 is different. Please note that the heading has shifted to 49 City. The general was stunned. Wasn't it heading for 49 City? Then he became even more frightened. Compared with concentrating resources in one battle circle, it was not a good thing for them to spread out the battle line and disperse the combat power. The highest combat power in the country is basically concentrated in the area of Sijiu City. Although there are also a large number of military guards in other places. After the Battle of Sijiu City, they found that the heavy firepower of Lansing did not have an advantage in front of these alien forces. Where is it going? The general frowned. According to the current direction of travel, the landing point should be in the Yangtze River Delta region. The Space Administration reported the trajectory by comparing the data sent by various space telescopes. Yangtze River Delta. The general pondered. Everyone knows that it is the hinterland of H country, a plain area where fish and rice are cultivated. The economy is relatively developed, and there is also the world famous economic capital Gao City. It can be said that in this area, no matter which city the advanced ship arrives at, the result will not be pleasant. Can't it be more precise? The general asked again. Sorry, the advanced ship has autonomous power and can change the flight direction at any time. It is too uncontrollable. The Space Administration replied, but we have a guess. Please see. On the big screen, the satellite picture of Lansing spread out. The east of H country faces a sea. If Lansing turns a little further, the sun will break through the night. But at the last moment before dawn, dots of light were scattered on the still dark territory of H country. The more developed the city, the more lights gathered. The lights in 3 places were the most dense, gathering into a huge light group, which was extremely eye-catching even from space. They were Sijiu City, Gao City, and Zhugang. We speculated that it was possible that the GRO was the first to attack Sijiu City, not necessarily because they knew that Sijiu City was the head city. The head of the space agency stated slowly, according to what we see on the space map, it is precisely because Sijiu City is the brightest. Yes, Sijiu City is too big, and it has been built all the way to the 7th ring. The total area has reached more than 16,000 square kilometers. As the head city of H country, the infrastructure will naturally not lag behind. The street lights that are bright all night, as well as various neon lights that promote a good nightlife and keep flashing. All these have contributed to Sijiu City becoming the brightest point in space observation. The chief thought, so you think the target of ship number 2 is Gao? As an economic capital that is connected to the international market, Gao is not as big as Sijiu, but its life of extravagance is just as good. Its brightness is second only to Sijiu City in space. If we follow this line of thinking, plus the current direction of ship number 2, we think it is most likely to go to Gao. The head of the space agency replied. If that is the case, the chief saw the last bright spot, which was the southernmost seaport city, Zhugang. Put Zhugang on alert. The chief quickly ordered. Take over the special affairs office. For this kind of thing, it is better to make a mistake than to be careless. The Mecha is now too busy to provide support. Fortunately, Gao is the headquarters of the special affairs office. As a pioneer in the dark, the chief has never seen the full picture of the special affairs office, but he is very confident in ZHU Kunjun's ability. Soon, ZHU Kunjun's smiling face appeared on the screen. Hello, chief. All the staff of the special affairs office are on standby. As an old combatant, he didn't think that the chief called him at almost 5 in the morning just to chat. Before Lin Fan rushed out of the special affairs office, all the staff of the special affairs office were on combat readiness. When the general control told him about the number 2 ship, ZHU Kunjun's smile froze visibly. I know. The special affairs office will definitely go all out. ZHU Kunjun promised in a firm tone. We will synchronize the location of number 2 as soon as possible. If it goes to a nearby city, we will also rush to help as soon as possible. Okay. The chief breathed a sigh of relief, and his eyebrows relaxed a lot. You are more familiar with the special affairs office than I am, so you will be fully responsible for the deployment and guarding the number 2 ship and the battle circle. In addition, the military's ordnance support will also go there. I will ask them to contact you and fully cooperate with your actions. Yes, thank you for your trust, Chief, and I will ensure that the mission is completed. ZHU Kunjan smiled and narrowed his eyes. Then I will go to prepare first. After the greeting, the person disappeared from the screen. Ship number 2 has broken through the atmosphere and is heading towards Gao. The space agency reported in real time. If it's because of the lights, how about asking them to turn off the lights? The person in charge of Sijiu City suddenly suggested. Everyone looked at it. If they are really attracted by the lights, then if they turn off the lights, won't they be able to find the target? The person in charge thought more and more that this was a good idea. After losing the target, Gro will not be able to sabotage it, right? Not necessarily. The person in charge of the space agency has been online and immediately denied it. The positioning function is not a difficult task for us. Ship number 2 is almost here, and it doesn't make much sense to turn off the lights in Sijiu City now. It's better not to turn it off. The biologist suddenly interrupted. Although insects are phototropic, they also have a certain night vision function. It doesn't seem to have much effect on them, whether there are lights or not. On the contrary, we can't move without light. What about Zhugang? The person in charge said again. Zhugang has not been affected yet. Let's try to turn off the lights in Zhugang first. What if Gro really uses these 3 bright spots as the target of attack? Turning off the lights in Zhugang may really stop its next attack plan. It's good to try. The chief looked at the number 2 ship getting closer and closer to Gao River and gave the order without much hesitation. Contact the person in charge of Zhugang infrastructure and turn off the lights in the whole city. Haha, let the special affairs office come out to show off. When I got up yesterday morning, oops, I had a stiff neck. My neck couldn't move to the left and left back. I tried stimulation therapy and shook it towards the pain point while enduring the pain. Then the whole house was filled with my screams, like a screaming chicken. It hurt, but it didn't work. So I decided to take a nap. Since sleeping is like this, maybe it will get better after sleeping. As a result, I still screamed when I lay down. This head, it's not the same head anymore. I slept for an hour and got up to feel it. Well, it didn't get better. I searched on Baidu what to do and read a lot of academic theories, but I didn't find any solution. Later, I took my medical records to the hospital, but I thought, will I take a lot of x-rays and take a lot of expensive medicines that are almost the same as not taking any medicines? So I had an idea and decided to find a massage shop. If I couldn't find it on Baidu, I would look for it on Douyin. When I got there, he said that my stiff neck was caused by cervical spondylosis and that I needed a massage on my shoulders and neck. I couldn't use the 40 yuan group purchase coupon, but had to pay 100 yuan. I felt extremely uncomfortable at the time, felt dizzy, couldn't work, and the left side of my neck was stiff, but I went ahead. After an hour, my shoulder felt quite comfortable, but my neck was only slightly better. It might have something to do with the fact that he operated on my shoulder and didn't do much to my neck. He also gave me acupuncture with a long needle inserted horizontally from my hypothenar into my palm. He asked me if I felt better, and I said no. He poked it again and asked again, but still no better. Then I started to worry. Can I just wipe the needle with alcohol cotton? Will it give me some strange infectious disease? I'm worried about rubbing mud during oil massage. No one else has such an idea. Chapter 516. The Special Officer's Response. At the same time as the alarm was sounded in Sijiu City, alarms were sounded all over the country. Everyone was still in order, complaining and reluctantly entering the shelter. Of course, not everyone. Those who were stubborn and grumbling were forcibly carried away, and those who kept silent and hid at home were really helpless. Good words can't persuade the damned ghost. At this juncture, the combat readiness force was weak, and no one had the time to check who didn't go downstairs. Of course, there was no shortage of clever tricks everywhere. Fortunately, after the lesson of Sijiu City, the general adjusted the strategy in time and asked the garrison forces of other cities to intervene in advance. Because there were no bugs, the effect was not bad. 2 hours of gap is enough for a well-developed authority to make a timely and effective response. When the number 2 ship arrived over Gao, the streets had been cleared. From the big screen, compared with the fighting in Sigio City, Gao, known as the city that never sleeps, looked strangely deserted. The alien ship didn't care about these. When it arrived at the place it thought was suitable, it started throwing bugs down. This time, it was the flyman riding on a cockroach that came out. The watermelon worm and the mantis did not appear again. Those 2 kinds of worms should be used for testing. The man in military uniform next to the chief said, "We threw a wave first to test our ability. We found that we killed them easily, so we threw the flyman." The chief nodded, took out a cigarette from his pocket, habitually wanted to light it, and then put it back, after seeing the situation. The flyman can almost fight our Mecha on equal terms. The chief simulated the feeling of exhaling a long breath. The cockroach is just a scapegoat, a combination of an aircraft, a ramming device and an insect egg. That thing has almost no attack power, but it has great destructive power to infrastructure. As for the insect eggs, they are just to disgust people. But now the second wave of attacks has been launched for more than an hour, and the same worms came out of number 2, and no new worms appeared in number 1. Does it mean that their main attack only reaches the flyman? Sen Fangyuan asked. Number 1 is the advanced ship over the Sigio city. Or maybe they think the flymen are enough, and don't need to send out stronger ones? Someone else expressed his opinion. The chief tapped his fingers on the tabletop slowly, squinting at the big screen, and said nothing. Let's not talk about whether they have stronger ones, but judging from the way number 2 directly sent the flyman, they seem to think that this is enough to deal with us. The person next to the chief continued. Although it sounds unpleasant, it is also true to some extent. If there were no mechas and no special affairs office, it would be very difficult for the military to attack in the first wave. The second wave of attacks cannot be launched without destroying the city buildings and protecting the city to the maximum extent. Either there will be countless casualties on our side, or they will launch hot weapons regardless of the consequences. Even if they defeat the attack of ship number 1, the city of Sigio will become a ruin. Economic regression is inevitable, and people's lives will be stretched in all aspects. This is just ship number 1, and the huge Grow may not retreat like this. Fortunately, they still have mechas, and fortunately there is a special affairs office in Gao. Is the special affairs office not in place yet? Someone asked. On the screen, many flymen flew out of ship number 2 and scurried around in the sky above Gao, like wasps whose nests were poked. They shuttled through the gaps between the buildings, approaching the windows and the lights. They did not cause any damage to the buildings, but flew lower and lower, obviously looking for something. Are they looking for someone? Someone asked. No way. Do the flymen in Sigio City behave like this? Everyone looked at the screen of Sigio City again. The flymen in Sigio City are too late. Sen Fangyuan narrowed his eyes and guessed. They are being chased by mechas, and they don't have time to escape. So how can they have time to go to Gao? The bionic mechas fought fiercely, and they would definitely be able to deal with a pair of enemies in 3 to 5 minutes at the fastest, and 10 minutes at the slowest. Not to mention Xingqian, who was like a tornado, leaving no insects unscathed wherever he went. Back to the empty Gao city, which had no armed forces, so they were just playing around. Hiss. This special office. Someone muttered. Before he finished speaking, ZHU Kunjin's face appeared on the screen. Report to the chief. The special affairs office is ready. ZHU Kunjin is actually also a field staff, and a very powerful one. But the current situation is special, and his role in command is obviously higher than that of going to the front line. So although he is eager to try, his butt is still glued to the boss chair, sitting in the center of the information room. In the information room, Wang Fengfeng and other hackers are silent, their fingers are flying, and hundreds of large and small screens are showing pictures and information. The content presented is not much less than that in the main control room. Many people in the main control room can't see anything, except the army of bugs when looking at Gaohi on the screen. They are curious about what means the special affairs office uses. But the chief doesn't speak, and they have no right to question ZHU Kunjin. After all, ZHU Kunjin's level is there. They have all heard of the Special Affairs Office, which is a non-scientific confidential security unit. It is said to be mysterious, but there are very few people who can see the Special Affairs Office at work with their own eyes. If it weren't for the special opportunity today, they might never have the opportunity to see it in their lifetime. Just as he was thinking, a flyman landed on a big cockroach. Instantly, a bright blue net began to extend outward from the point where the cockroach touched the bottom. The blue thin line extended upward from the intersection of the net lines. Once it touched the insects in the air, it stretched into a net and continued to extend in all directions. In a few breaths, the middle of Gaius building was covered with a bright blue net, which was still extending upward. And the insects on the net were like prey falling into a spider web, completely unable to move. What is this? The chief was curious. He was in a high position, but he had not seen much of the methods of the Special Affairs Office. Thunder Array. ZHU Kunjan smiled. Our special methods. Let everyone laugh. Everyone couldn't help swallowing, and then questions came into their minds. Thunder? Isn't this electricity? Just as he was thinking, the electric net had risen to the position of ship number 2, and soon laid the net, and penetrated the hull and continued upward. There is nothing on it. Everyone murmured in their hearts. Fortunately, ship number 2 seemed to be affected, and stopped releasing insects. Suddenly, a huge flash of light hit ship number 2, as if it was going to split the sky and earth. The screen was blindingly bright for a moment, and nothing could be seen clearly. The people in the control room turned their heads to avoid it involuntarily. Even though the video could not transmit sound, their eardrums seemed to be rumbling with thunder. It seemed to come from ancient times, deafening. When the light faded, everyone looked back at the screen. Above Gao City, ship number 2 was hanging quietly like a chicken. The dense flies and big cockroaches before were all gone. The control room was quiet for a long time, as if waiting for the tinnitus in the ears to end, and then someone asked hesitantly, "Then, where are those things? Are they all gone? Look, that layer of ash underground." ZHU Kunjan smiled, his curved eyes shining. Wow. Even though most of the people sitting in the control room were high-ranking officials, they couldn't help but sigh when they saw this scene. The methods of the Special Affairs Office are indeed better seen than heard. Give a little description of the Special Affairs Office to make up for the fact that Baozi wanted to see the plot of the Special Affairs Office before. Chapter 517 Various Means. 1 minute ago, there were so many bugs in the sky above Gao City. Even if there were not thousands, there must be hundreds. However, 1 minute later, the battle was still going on in Sagio City, but Gao was gone in the blink of an eye. If it weren't for number 2 still hanging in the air and a lot of black ash falling on the ground, they would have suspected that they had seen it wrong. Gao was not invaded by alien ships at all. The strength of the Special Affairs Office is so terrifying. ZHU Kunjan's smiling face was still on the big screen, but everyone's mood was completely different from before. Many people had dealt with this old man as department representatives before. Don't think that he is easy to get along with just because the old guy smiles all day. If you have such an illusion, just wait to be mad at him. ZHU Kunjan was so shameless that he wanted to get resources for the Special Affairs Office. You couldn't beat him, and you couldn't win the argument. In the end, you were furious, but they still smiled at you. The higher-ups seemed to give preferential treatment to the Special Affairs Office and favored this guy. Therefore, everyone was usually angry with him, but the nature of the Special Affairs Office and the casualty rate were also well-known facts. In the end, they could only reluctantly give in and curse the old man behind his back. Until now, they witnessed the methods of the Special Affairs Office with their own eyes. They suddenly realized that they had underestimated ZHU Kunjan, and they also had a new assessment of the power represented by this old man. Some people with quick minds thought that since the Special Affairs Office was so powerful, why didn't they transfer it to the Sagio City for defense? If this thunder array was used in the Sagio City, would they still have to worry about it in the control room for so long? The aliens in the Sagio City must have been cleared out long ago, right? Didn't you see that number 2 is still motionless now? Maybe it was crippled by the thunder array, and the insects inside were also chopped into ashes. At this moment, the number 2 ship, whose life and death were unknown, had new movements. When everyone saw a new batch of fly people being released, they all breathed a sigh of relief. Although it was disappointing that ship number 2 did not completely break down, the opponent's combat power did not upgrade after such an attack, which to some extent represented the upper limit of the opponent's ability. At least there should be no more powerful combat output than the flyman on ship number 2. As for the flyman, no matter how many of them come, they are not afraid. Once the Special Affairs Office's Thunder Array came out, they were all chopped into ashes. The mood was relaxed, and some people discussed why ship number 2 was fine after being struck by lightning. Maybe there is a lightning protection device. The person in charge of the armament said. It is very likely. The space agency, which was still online, interrupted. There will also be thunderstorms in space. In theory, it is normal for spaceships to have lightning protection devices. Such a big thunder, is it possible that they have no damage at all? The exercise leader of Sijiu City asked. Such a big lightning, I almost thought that the sky and the earth would be split apart. That's not clear. Maybe some equipment was damaged? Ship number 2 has not moved since it was struck. The person in charge of the armament replied, I was wrong. It moved. On the screen, ship number 2 began to move slowly again, continuing to so flymen over Gao. It's okay, it can be solved with a thunder array anyway, someone said, and many people laughed. Maybe it was because the last wave of counterattacks was too easy, so everyone was in a mood to talk and laugh at this time. ZHU Kunjin, are there any more thunder arrays? The general obviously also had high hopes for the thunder array. No, ZHU Kunjin smiled and said the answer that everyone didn't want to hear. Power is proportional to consumption, so we can't activate the same power of thunder array in a short time. After this, everyone was speechless and suddenly realized that they were too presumptuous. Everyone saw the power of the thunder array just now, which was equivalent to more than an hour of fierce fighting in Sijiu City, and there was almost no risk and additional loss. Of course, the loss of personnel within the special office is another matter. If this kind of attack can be released continuously for a short period of time, it is indeed against the sky. Unifying Langsing is not a dream. I wanted to start with a super big move and destroy ship number 2 in one go, but I didn't expect it to fail. ZHU Kunjin explained with a smile. This time, the thunder array was much more powerful than the one Lin Fan encountered before. He also had to control the area and avoid buildings. This move looked really powerful, but it drained all the spiritual power of the supernatural powers of 2 departments. Thunder, as the most powerful attack element in history, ZHU Kunjin originally wanted to start the game with a single blow to defeat the enemy, but he didn't expect that it wouldn't work. He looked at the intact spaceship and couldn't help but think of the stars. Could it be that all aliens are resistant to thunder? Seeing that director ZHU is so confident, there must be other arrangements. Sen Fangyuan took over with a smile. Of course. ZHU Kunjin didn't say much, but soon, everyone saw it on the screen. A stack of paper flew in from nowhere, as if it had eyes, and it was posted on the flyman and the big cockroach one by one. The next moment, something strange happened. Many flymen were suddenly surrounded by fire, and the whole person was on fire, and soon it affected the big cockroach under its feet. Some flying insects instantly turned into ice sculptures or metal sculptures, and fell straight down. The ice sculptures were smashed to pieces when they hit the ground, and the metal statues were twisted beyond recognition by the huge impact. The greenery on both sides of the road grew wildly, and the branches became as soft as vines, stretching high up, and immediately entangled with the insects. The dense branches instantly covered the insects' bodies, forming an airtight cocoon, and then pulled them down fiercely and smashed them to the ground. Are these the methods of the Special Affairs Office? Someone asked in a trembling voice. From beginning to end, the person who took action did not show up, and the opponent began to be defeated. It was simply amazing. Excuse me. ZHU Kunjin still had a smiling face. The people in the control room can be said to be the top leaders of H country. What kind of world have they not seen? But what happened just now made them feel like frogs in the well for a long time. Then, what is that? That one is twitching by itself. Someone couldn't help asking. On the screen, most of the insects have obvious visual effects on their bodies, which can make people see what kind of damage they have suffered. But there are also a small number of insects that have nothing visible on their bodies, but they are twitching like epilepsy. That's the effect of the confinement talisman, ZHU Kunjin explained with a smile. Sometimes, it can also be used like this, a closed space that isolates the air. That is to say, they are vacuumed. If they are suffocated, can they not suffocate? Everyone looked at ZHU Kunjins and changed smile, and they secretly decided in their hearts that they would be more polite to this smiling tiger in the future and never let him bear a grudge. The resistance of the Special Affairs Office was accompanied by various sound and light effects, just like a special effects blockbuster. On the other side of the screen, the mechas fought hard and hard, which was also exciting. Everyone watching in the control room suddenly felt that the alien attack did not seem to be so scary. Director ZHU, someone else asked, since your employees are so powerful, can you dispatch some of them to Sijiu City to help? Isn't Ma Xingqian in Sijiu City? Didn't he go there as soon as possible? ZHU Kunjin raised the corner of his mouth, revealing a little bit of his teeth, and his smile had a little other meaning. Everyone present knew that Xingqian was not from 800. I mean, you probably don't know that the bionic armors other than Xingqian will soon be running out of energy. By then, the main force of Sijiu City will only have Xingqian left. The man said to make amends. ZHU Kunjin didn't know that the bionic armors were running out of power. After finding out, his first reaction was to ask Xingqian if he knew about it. After learning that Lin Fan hadn't been told, he finally breathed a sigh of relief and said to the chief, then don't tell my Xingqian about this. The little girl's psychological quality is not very good. If she knows, it will definitely affect her performance. Okay, similar things will cause her state to fluctuate. Except for the battle situation related to her, the general control will not take the initiative to inform her. The chief promised. This promise is not only about the problem of Mecha energy, but also includes that, if Gao City is defeated, it will not be possible to take the initiative to inform Lin Fan before the crisis of Sijiu City is resolved. ZHU Kunjin understood and thanked the chief politely. Soon, the various colorful light effects on the screen gradually faded, and only a few were still stubbornly holding on. ZHU Kunjin explained that the capabilities of this batch were almost exhausted, and they needed to be replaced. As the main force of the superpower disappeared, the bugs began to wreak havoc again, but there was no movement on the screen. Did the Special Affairs Office fail? Everyone looked at ZHU Kunjin's smiling face. It seemed that it didn't. What big move is this old guy planning? Although everyone was puzzled, they also had a vague expectation in their hearts. The next second, the whole screen turned black. What's going on? The main control technician hurriedly adjusted the surveillance camera. The nearby cameras were all black, and it was difficult to pull the camera to the distance. There were gasps in the main control room. It's a snake. A big snake. The Special Affairs Office actually has many methods, but in order not to occupy the main part, I will just write some general ideas, just for the sake of meaning. Chapter 518 Hydra. On the empty streets of Gao City, a huge snake was coiled on the road. No one knew how such a thick snake could exist. Just looking at its body, it was nearly 2 stories high. At the moment when the shouting sounded in the control room, its head was pulled out from its curled body and raised high. Even through the surveillance camera at such a distance, you can still see the sharp teeth and scarlet tongue in its open mouth. The green snake eyes glowed with cold light, the vertical pupils stood up, and the muscles on both sides of the neck became flat and opened in a fan shape. It swayed its body and slowly turned its head, just moving in front of a camera. The control room was so quiet that even breathing could not be heard. Even though we knew that it was the image transmitted from Gao through the camera, the eyes of the giant snake seemed to be staring coldly at everyone present. The head, which was larger than the head of a truck, did not move, and suddenly opened its mouth, revealing a throat like a black hole, and rushed towards the camera. Many people screamed, as if they were about to be buried in the snake's mouth in the next moment. At the same time, there was also the harsh sound of chairs sliding across the ground. The control room had never been so chaotic. Some people covered their eyes and huddled up, while some stood up from their chairs, but fell to the ground the next moment with their bodies limp. Many of the bigwigs sitting in the back also lost their composure. Only the people in the military had firm eyes and stood still. "Another one from your institute?" the chief asked indifferently, looking at ZHU Kunjin with an unchanged smile. Everyone woke up from their fear and returned to their work immediately. The frightened people in the back remembered that ZHU Kunjin was still there, and their embarrassment must have been seen by him. Looking at his smiling face, he must be laughing at them in his heart. This old man is very bad. He cursed in his heart, but dared not show anything on his face. Yes, this is a summoned creature of a child in our institute. ZHU Kunjin didn't care about those mortal enemies. The children in his institute were much more important than these guys. Summoned creatures? Everyone watched the screen. The big snake had several insects in its mouth, chewed and swallowed them, and its thick body began to sway slowly again. I couldn't help but lean back on the chair. Is this a monster? Or a shikigami? Everyone present had also watched some movies, and they thought it was a fictional thing, but suddenly saw it in reality. It seemed that they had only really seen what this world looked like at this moment. Shikigami are the little toys of those guys who have a good life. ZHU Kunjin suddenly said sarcastically, ours is strictly considered a monster, one of the loyal partners in the spiritual world of children. One of them? The general manager couldn't help asking, does that mean he can summon other monsters? Are there any more powerful monsters? Although the snake is big and looks scary, it can only summon 3 or 5 pairs of monsters in its mouth just by eating insects. It seems that its attack power is average, and it is always shaking, a bit passive and lazy. Compared with the previous tight attack rhythm, it is not a little bit worse. If there are other powerful monsters, the general manager would like to see them. There are other monsters, but in terms of strength, this one may not be inferior. ZHU Kunjin saw that the people on the opposite side showed a disapproving expression, and his smile suddenly became a little teasing. You may not know yet, the one who appears now is called Hydra. Huh. Everyone who heard the name was stunned. The Hydra in mythology. Does it really exist? The chief's eyes lit up, and he stared at the screen at the first time. ZHU Kunjin saw that the big snake on the screen was still shaking, and coughed lightly. Let Zaohi be more alert. Suddenly, the snake head that was still swaying in the air stopped moving. Then the snake body coiled on the road began to slide and surge, and everyone's eyes focused on the slippery senses, with both disgust and expectation. Soon, one after another, the snake heads as big as truck heads rose from below, swaying and standing up. The monitoring in the control room was very clear, and they were also counting secretly. Sure enough, it was really a Hydra. The other 8 heads seemed to have just woken up, a little wilted, and seemed to be somewhat reluctant. ZHU Kunjin coughed again, and soon, the 9 heads of the Hydra began to perk up, and then some of them opened their mouths and spurted out flames. In a hidden place in a building in Gao, Wu Yusen and Zaohi were leaning on the window to watch the performance of the Hydra. Brother Wu, is this okay? Zaohi was excited and at a loss as he watched the treasure in his card finally appear on the street in broad daylight and show his power. That's it. Wu Yusen smiled as he watched the 9 heads spit fire and bite each other without interfering with each other, dyeing the sky above Gao into a purgatory on Earth. Will it continue to attack in this state? Don't you need to control it with your other divine power? Yes, the characters in the cards have their inherent attack consciousness and attributes. I just need to let them attack the bugs, and they will attack in the way they are best at. Zaohi's eyes were like diamonds, shining brightly, saving the world. Even if no one knows, he feels that he is very powerful. The unspeakable heroism filled the boy's heart. In his dream, he should be such a useful person, not the shy and even timid person that everyone sees on weekdays. When the air raid alarm sounded, he was still at home, and then he hurriedly evacuated with his parents. As an employee of the Special Affairs Office, he knew more than others, but because he was a minor and his parents were still alive, the summons given to him did not require him to return to the Special Affairs Office. After entering the subway, in the crowded crowd, everyone complained for no reason. Only he knew the truth of the matter. At that time, he felt that he was the chosen one. He stayed in the subway for nearly 2 hours without doing anything. The crowded crowd and the unpleasant smell made everyone feel uncomfortable. Some people believed what was said on the radio, that it was not an exercise, while others did not. Anyway, participating in the exercise is a means to earn citizen points, which can be used for household registration, job promotion, etc. Anyway, there is no running away if you cooperate. Everyone patiently waited for the notice to go out. According to the previous practice, it would be about 3 hours. No one realized what they were about to face. So Zaohi received the notification and told his parents that he had just seen several classmates not far away. When he wanted to go play with them, Zao's father and mother, who were yawning, confirmed that he had brought his mobile phone and that the signal and power were sufficient and let him go without much hesitation. Zaohi traversed mountains and rivers through the crowd, came to the designated employee passage, and slipped in. After walking through a long and narrow passage that was not too dark, John Woo, who was fully equipped, was waiting for him outside with a smile. Little Zaohi came out. Why was there a scene with him before? It was used here. I recently saw a clip of Ty Mario when he was young on Bilibili. The image in school is how I feel about Zaohi. Hahaha, they are all beautiful boys. Chapter 519 Zaohi's Heroic Dream. In theory, when aliens invade, special agents like Wu Yusen who have no special powers do not need to go to the battle. Their own advantages are not worth mentioning in front of these bugs. But Zaohi wanted to go, because his card can only be released at close range, so as the field agent who is most familiar with him, and the terrain of Gao, Wu Yusen became the most suitable candidate for escort. When Zaohi was wearing combat protective clothing, his heartbeat began to accelerate. When he knew the task assigned to him, he keenly realized that the highlight of his life had finally come. Although late, it has come. He, Zaohi, the card man, will officially debut today. Maintaining this excitement, Zaohi showed his qualities that he could not usually achieve and followed Wu Yusen all the way to the preparation point. After seeing the disgusting aliens and the various methods of the seniors of the Special Affairs Office, Zaohi was also eager to try. So after Wu Yusen gave him a signal, he trembled and took out the cards that had been warmed up. He gasped and was about to make the next move when he was suddenly knocked down by Wu Yusen and the cards were scattered all over the floor. Zaohi immediately realized that there must be a bug flying through the window. In order to facilitate observation, they stuck to the window and were very close to the battle circle. Now the second round of attacks from the Special Affairs Office was weakening, with only a few spots left. In this case, if he was discovered by the aliens before he sent out the cards, causing them to swarm in, the consequences would be disastrous. Zaohi quietly looked at the cards scattered on the floor, motionless in Wu Yusen's arms. I don't know how long it took. Wu Yusen pulled him up. Seeing that he hadn't come back to his senses, he hurriedly called him, and at the same time, he didn't forget to bend down to help him pick up the cards. Zaohi, wake up. Wu Yusen stuffed all the cards into his hands, and seeing that he was still in a daze, he mercilessly gave him a slap. Zaohi felt pain and immediately came to his senses. Hurry up. The superpowers are disappearing, and there are not many left. Wu Yusen didn't care about Zaohi's expression and stuck close to the window frame, hiding his body and observing the outside. Zaohi listened and immediately followed, carefully sticking half of his head out from the windowsill. Although the insects suffered numerous casualties, with number 2 constantly spreading in the sky, many more soon gathered. Zaohi lowered his head, and the first card in his hand was the Hydra. Is the Hydra suitable for this scene? Zaohi hesitated. Hurry up. Wu Yusen urged. Zaohi didn't have time to think about it, and responded to Wu Yusen's urging, directly pasting the Hydra card on the window with the pattern facing outward. Then he covered the card with his entire palm, and pressed it tightly. He closed his eyes, and tried hard to imagine the image of the Hydra in his mind. But because it was his first real battle, he was anxious. The image of the Hydra had not yet fully appeared, and he released the character. That's why those people in the control room saw that kind of awake and not so controlled situation. The image of the character is complete when it is created, so as long as it is released, it will be in a complete form. but outlining the image in the mind is also a necessary process to awaken the character. Otherwise it will be like the Hydra. Even though it is released, it still can't figure out the situation, and he must remedy it on the spot. This will definitely consume more energy than simply manipulating the cards, and the action will be much slower. Didn't you see that the director has urged twice? He was relieved to see that the Hydra finally returned to normal. The first appearance of the card man was almost messed up. He took a few deep breaths, calmed down, and his body was finally not so tense. Seeing the Hydra posing and swinging in the air, it didn't seem to be very far away from ship number 2. He had an idea and asked it to use several heads to entangle ship number 2. It would be great if it could pull it down. Ship number 2 was not stupid. Seeing the 3 snake heads rushing over, it immediately took off. Although the Hydra is big, it also needs its tail to support itself on the ground to stand up, so the height that the snake head can reach is limited. After it couldn't reach it, it twisted and harassed it below, spraying fire, using a tongue. Half of the insects released by ship number 2 went directly into the mouths of these snakes. How could this work? Soon, the insects received the order and gathered to attack the Hydra. Although the Hydra has thick skin and flesh, the guns of the fly people can cause damage to it. The densely packed fly people besieged it, and he saw that the health bar of the card was decreasing sharply. If it continues like this, the Hydra will be finished sooner or later. These dogs and insects have no martial ethics. He gritted his teeth in hatred and focused on the other cards in his hand. So, a big toad holding a pipe soon appeared on the big screen in the main control room. This toad is more than 10 meters tall. Although it is much smaller than the Hydra next to it, it is also huge compared to the building next to it. Toad eats flies. It's appropriate. Someone in the main control room muttered in a low voice. What about the pipe? Someone else had a question. Will it fall off when it opens its mouth? Who would have thought that the next moment, the toad pulled out a knife from somewhere behind his back, kicked his legs, and jumped into the air, slashing at the insects surrounding the Hydra. The main control room was silent for a while, and no one expected it to unfold like this. Hiss. So it seems that the Hydra algorithmist, this toad is a Malay assassin? This is the summary from the game fans. Looking at the clumsy and light figure of the big toad, it's really appropriate to say that it's an assassin. I thought that toad had other tricks, just chopping. Someone said disappointedly. No, this toad can also spit bubble bombs, which can be fire or water, much more powerful than the Hydra. Zhu Kunjin hurriedly proved his family's reputation. Since there is a powerful trick, why don't you use it? Asked the person next to the chief. It's because it's too powerful. Zhu Kunjin smiled bitterly. That's a bubble bomb. Once it's soaked, all the houses around will collapse. Our people added a protective barrier to the surrounding buildings, which can block a certain amount of collision impact, including the fire of the Hydra, but the bubble bomb of the toad is not good. A shock wave will directly break it, which is not worth the loss. So that's it. Everyone in the control room nodded silently. The toad, who had no special moves, moved cleanly and neatly. The knife was made of unknown material, but it could directly cut through the insect's shell and cut them in half easily. If you don't look at its body shape, you would think it was a martial arts master. There was an indescribable sense of violent beauty between its movements. So in Gao's picture, the huge Hydra swayed its 9 heads and attacked each other, biting and spitting fire. It was a group of demons dancing wildly. The big toad jumped up and down, and the knife was bloody, jumping happily. Putting aside their attributes, just looking at the picture, it was a little hard to tell who was the good guy and who was the bad guy. When they thought that Gao's battle circle would be finalized with magic, there appeared even stranger robots, strangely shaped airplanes, and Ultraman. This was quite explosive. Even the general knew that Ultraman was a character in a fairy tale, but now it appeared alive in the picture. Could they also be part of the fairy tale? Well, Ultraman stopped fighting the monsters and started fighting aliens with them. Everyone was confused for a moment. What was going on? The next moment, a new character joined. Everyone looked up helplessly and was shocked. Isn't that white Mecha Xingqian? Wasn't it foreshadowed a long time ago? If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 520, Ship Number 3. Star Card, Zaohe's latest masterpiece. After throwing the last usable card, Zaohe looked at the fierce battle in the battle circle with a sense of relief, and breathed a sigh of relief. Wu Yusen patted the child's shoulder and smiled. You did a good job. Zaohe looked at the battle in the distance, turned his head and smiled confidently, and then looked back with some youthful cruelty. If you want to bully us, let it go without return. Wu Yusen chuckled, patted Zaohe's shoulder again, and followed the battle with him. The control room of Sijiu City. Everyone looked at the stars above Gao, and then looked back at the stars above Sijiu City, and they all suspected that their eyes were wrong. Are there 2 stars? The general asked with narrowed eyes. There is only 1 star. Zhu Kunjin replied, but we used special means to copy a star. To some extent, we can say that there are 2. Zhu Kunjin's smile on his face has not changed, but it always makes people feel that he is showing off. Clone. The biologist interrupted with bright eyes. Oh, that's not the case. It's our unique secret method. If you insist, it belongs to energy body replication, just like what you see on the screen. They are all made by the same method. Zhu Kunjin shook his head to deny, and explained slowly. Energy body replication? Cui Yan's voice came. How exactly does it work? Sorry, this is a secret method that my special office doesn't pass on. Zhu Kunjin politely refused, but Cui Yan could hear the pride in his tone. Are these 2 stars equal in combat power? The general looked back and forth on the 2 screens and soon saw the subtle difference. The star card has not been tested after it was made, and the specific data is not clear. Zhu Kunjin said regretfully, but according to past practice, it has at least 50% of the ability of the star itself. Zhu Kunjin thought it was unlikely to completely replicate all the abilities of the star. At the beginning, Zaohe fell first. Although the card was completed, the process was not complete. So he conservatively estimated that 50% of the star's ability should be replicated, but he couldn't say how much it could be. Star card? The general was puzzled. Yes, these characters are stored in cards and released when summoned, so they are named after the cards. For example, Hydra card, Ultraman card, so Xingqian is a Xingqian card. In addition to retaining their basic attributes and combat logic, they have no independent consciousness and need to be commanded by the summoner. So the Xingqian you see above Gao is actually a tool person without independent consciousness under the command of others. For example, now, Xingqian card is under command to attack, and will judge how to attack, and what to do next according to the combat skills and experience of Xingqian itself. Unless the summoner intervenes, she will continue to use Xingqian's instinctive combat consciousness. And Xingqian above Sijiu City is different. All her actions are controlled by the living people inside. So this is the biggest difference between the 2. The general nodded. In other words, Xingqian is essentially a human being, can communicate with people, and will be bound by his own emotions and thoughts. Xingqian card is just like those monsters. It has the same ability as Xingqian, but has no emotions and independent thinking, and is only driven by the summoner. Which one is better? He couldn't say. But at present, the emotionless star card seems to be more decisive in killing. Maybe it's because of the different calculation methods. She only has the most suitable plan in her mind, and there is no hesitation in her actions. When the spear is swung, all the insects are cut in half, which is much more efficient than the big toad. The original star, on the other hand, is affected by many factors, and hesitates to act. It is not as straightforward as the star card. Sen Fangyuan is also one of the few people who discovered this problem. He carefully checked the faces of others, and was secretly worried. When the ability of the toolman exceeds that of the real person, will it cause any harm to Lin Fan? Sijiu City and Gao City were all in a fierce battle, and it was difficult to tell the winner for a while. In the main control room, the bionic armor energy display was close to the 15% low energy bright red area, but it seemed that the battle would not end quickly. The general manager put the fantasy Geo City aside first and wanted to solve the crisis of Sigeo City first. However, the space agency reported another bad news at this time. There's movement on the Grow. Ship number 3 is being lowered, heading towards Zhugang. The chief's eyebrows were raised. Zhugang? It's useless to turn off the lights in Zhugang. Soon, the satellite image was switched on, and the lights in Zhugang were still on. The chief wanted to get angry, but forced himself to hold it back. This was no longer the time to worry about why the lights in Zhugang had not been turned off after dozens of minutes. How is the armament deployment in Zhugang? The chief asked with a grim expression. All deployments are in place, but it's just ordinary combat power. If the combat power in ship number 3 is equivalent to the previous 2 ships. The reporter didn't finish, but everyone knew what he meant. Ordinary armaments are really hard to resist in front of alien creatures. The situation in Sigeo City was already critical. It won't be long before only Xingqian will be left in the front. Compared with Zhugang, well, it's still better than Zhugang. At least there is Xingqian, the killer weapon, and the ground forces have experience. Even if you want Xingqian to rescue, you have to wait until the battle in Sigeo City is completely over. From this point of view, maybe Gao's Special Affairs Office still has spare power. Everyone's eyes turn to ZHU Kunjin. Can the Special Affairs Office support Zhugang? The chief asked in a deep voice. This. ZHU Kunjin lowered his eyes and thought for a while before replying. The effective strike force has been used in the first few rounds, and the current summoned beasts are also on the field. It is impossible to withdraw them. Besides, the summoner can only control them at close range, and it is impossible to separate the 2 places. There is no one else available in such a large special affairs office. A person who didn't get along well with ZHU Kunjin said, "You have so much funding every year. Don't say that there are only so few people. You know shit." ZHU Kunjin smiled and said, "Do you know how many people from my special affairs office were held back in the 2 waves just now?" The other party joked, although he was not convinced, but thinking about it, it was indeed inappropriate for him to say that what he said was inappropriate. There are many people in the special affairs office, but only a part of them are capable of fighting in the field. ZHU Kunjin ignored the others and focused on explaining to the chief, "This part of people was pressed by me in the first 2 waves of attack, and the rest of them are not as good as the ground armed forces. To fight against aliens, it is impossible to let incompetent people rush forward. I don't believe you didn't hold back." The man was unwilling to accept the defeat and interrupted, "You have put all your strength into this battle. Haven't you ever thought about what to do if this batch of summon beasts doesn't work? You are a smiling tiger who has planned everything. Don't say you didn't. I don't believe it." ZHU Kunjin glared at the guy fiercely and explained to the chief, "One of the 3 bosses of the special affairs office is in seclusion and cannot be disturbed, so he can't help. One is not in the special affairs office. I don't know where he went. I sent a message, but he hasn't replied yet. I'm afraid it's hard to count on him. The other one is in the office, but he doesn't care about the secular world and is difficult to communicate with. He is not someone I can command. I originally planned to ask him if this wave of summoned beasts couldn't be defended." ZHU Kunjin's smile faded. "Forget it. I'll try to beg him. But there is no guarantee that he will come out to protect Zhugang. Don't hold too high hopes." After that, his avatar went black. No one spoke in the control room for a while, and only the broadcast of the space administration was heard. "Attention, ship number 3 is moving at an extremely fast speed. Attention, ship number 3 has broken through the atmosphere. Attention, ship number 3 is approaching the sky above Zhugang. That's it. There is no one in Zhugang. What should we do?" Chapter 521, Killing Spree. Sigeo City. The second generation of A energy alarmed and had to withdraw one by one. Lin Fan didn't know this. She followed the route Pangu had taken and cooperated with the team below in a tacit understanding and rhythm until the main control suddenly spoke. "Aliens attacked the subway station. The number of casualties increased. Please go to rescue Xingqian quickly." Subway station? That means civilian casualties. After receiving the rescue notice, Lin Fan didn't care about anything else and immediately flew at full speed along the latest navigation route. Why did they suddenly attack the subway station? Lin Fan frowned and asked. After the personnel were evacuated, the iron gate at the entrance of the subway station was pulled down. People hid in a relatively low position. Even if the flyman passed by the subway station entrance, he should not have noticed anything. Unless someone was making trouble, disobeying management, inciting others to make trouble, and rushed to the subway entrance above, while the management staff was not paying attention, and was hit by an alien. The main control's voice was a bit gnashing. Needless to say, the alien was passing by, and accidentally saw a living person. How could the iron fence at the gate withstand the collision of the big cockroach? It was torn and deformed immediately. The entrance was revealed after the flyman lifted it up again. The troublemaker only had time to scream before he died at the hands of the flyman. The flyman, who was more than 2 meters tall, didn't even need to draw his gun to kill an ordinary Langsing person. When the staff chasing behind heard the sound and realized something was wrong, it was too late. Countless flymen landed, and the subway entrance with the door open and the chaotic noises were like an invitation to them. They got off the cockroaches, and their hard feet stepped on the stairs going down. The sound of the collision echoed in the tunnel and spread far away, leaving the area illuminated by the streetlights. It became darker and darker as they went down. The flyman stepped into the darkness without a care, and soon, screams rang out. Lin Fan rushed out from her original fighting position, thinking that there would be many insects on the road that she couldn't deal with in time, but she didn't encounter any for a long time. When she saw a large black mass of cockroaches parked in front of the subway station like parking cars, she understood. The nearby insects must have received some signal and gathered here. There was no need to count the big cockroaches. There were at least dozens of them. That meant there were at least dozens of fly people in the subway. Lin Fan slashed with her knife and killed all the cockroaches when she passed by. The moment she stepped into the darkness, her eyes suddenly went dark. She slowed down her steps and looked back. Outside the subway station, the pale light shone on the empty road in a dead silence. A forced march. The logistics corpse collecting team that helped her to finish the job had just been left behind by her, so the original tricky attack method should not be used. She was alone now. How should she deal with the fly people? This thought flashed through her mind, but before she could get an answer, she was interrupted by screams from below the subway. Not only screams, but also crying, howling, cursing, and children crying. Lin Fan had no time to think about it. She gritted her teeth and rushed into the darkness. As soon as she reached the bottom of the stairs, she saw a corpse lying on the ground. Lin Fan glanced at it and quickly looked away. Although she had done a lot of tasks in the Special Affairs office, she had never encountered a dead person. The only cuckold is still a nightmare that she has not completely overcome. But on the way forward, more and more people appeared on the ground. At first, there were staff members in uniforms, and soon young and middle-aged men in plain clothes appeared. They fell quietly on the roadside in different postures, and even lay in the middle of the road, bloody. The ground, walls, and even the ceiling of the passage were splattered with blood. Lin Fan had no way to avoid it. As long as she opened her eyes, she would inevitably see all kinds of tragic scenes. The spacious and bright subway passage in the past now seemed like hell on earth, with corpses everywhere. She was breathing rapidly, her eyes were sore, and she couldn't tell whether she was afraid or something else, and she was a little at a loss. But her mind still remembered that she had to go inside, so she tiptoed carefully, for fear of stepping on the people on the ground. In the control room, everyone saw such a tragic scene from Xingqian's perspective, and their faces were very ugly. This casualty could have been avoided. Cui Yan was still online, and looking at Lin Fan's appearance, he knew that her mind must be confused now. Xingqian, fly directly. As one of the people who was most familiar with Lin Fan's characteristics, he interrupted and ordered directly. Lin Fan seemed to have found some clarity in the fog, and she didn't care who sent the message. She just floated up and rushed forward. Following the sound, she soon arrived at the place. There were lights deep in the subway. Therefore, the red blood was more conspicuous on the white wall. Lin Fan's eyes were filled with tears, and they rolled down. The flyman in the front pinched a man's neck, ignoring the other parties waving his hands to resist, and directly squeezed his neck to pieces. It was so easy that it seemed like pinching a ripe tomato. After the head in his hand drooped weakly, he casually threw it to the side and looked for the next target. Lin Fan rushed over regardless of the blurry eyes, knocked the flyman away, and smashed him heavily into the wall, then picked up the gun and rushed to the other flymen. The survivors saw that they had escaped, and their survival consciousness reached the extreme, and they crawled to the side. As a result, they didn't run far before they were caught by another flyman. It was like a demonstration, waiting for Xingqian to turn around, and then pinch the man to death in front of Lin Fan. Lin Fan was too late to rescue him. He watched a living person who had just blinked and breathed, and his brain burst in an instant. Blood flowed down the flyman's hand, and the red rotten meat in his hand, which was no longer distinguishable from the face and the skin, was thrown to the ground in an instant. Lin Fan choked up, her breathing was rapid, and she whimpered like a little animal, tears falling down her face. Her nose was quickly blocked, and the snot slid down, and was quickly sucked back. Between breaths, she seemed to smell a strong smell of blood. She didn't know what she was crying for. Was it fear? Cowardice? Guilt? Or something else? Her mind was a mess. The hand holding the gun was shaking with force. In the 2 seconds she stood there, another scream came. Lin Fan closed his eyes tightly and rushed out with the long gun. Facing the gushing blood, he shot through the still complacent flyman. The warm blood sprayed on the white armor of Xingqian, and the blood beads were round and slid down one after another. Lin Fan seemed to feel the blood burning her skin through the outer armor. If she hadn't hesitated, if she had been faster, wouldn't this person have survived? It only took a moment for the spear to penetrate the body of the flyman, but Lin Fan delicately felt the feeling of first hard and then soft, just like the feeling of piercing the green turtle. It was completely different from the feeling of piercing the insect before. So she was right. There was a person inside the flyman. But it was meaningless to think about it now. Lin Fan pulled out the gun fiercely, clenched her teeth tightly, and rushed to the next flyman. It's just killing. It's not like she hasn't killed before. Why is she being so pretentious? Exclamation mark. The flyman saw Xingqian going on a killing spree and pointed his gun at the scattered people. How could Lin Fan let them succeed again? So he used his speed to the extreme. The people in the control room only saw the picture on the screen blurry, too fast to see clearly. When it settled down again, in Xingqian's field of vision, all the flymen were motionless. The people who didn't understand the situation shouted and fled deeper. Almost at the same time, the motionless fly people fell to the ground one after another, their heads and necks separated. Such an auspicious number. I actually wrote this. It's really a sin. This is the inevitable process of growth. Pain. You can't escape. Killing to stop killing. Lin Fan has a God in her heart. She has no choice but to choose to kill. This kind of thing was actually destined when she became a Mecha and was exposed to the public for the first time. Mecha has always been a weapon. Chapter 522, New Mecha appears. When the first bright color appeared in the sky, Fu Guang had to evacuate from the front line. Song Ren exited the Mecha, quickly jumped off the Mecha transport vehicle, and got into the logistics vehicle waiting in front. He didn't care about the sweat on his face and asked, "What is the situation now?" When he came down, Binglin and Yu Feng were still on the field. Now only Binglin is still fighting, but his energy is about to reach the bottom. The communicator replied. "Where is Xingqian? How is she?" Song Ren took the towel handed over by the person next to him and thanked him. Then he remembered to take off his helmet and loosen his collar to wipe the sweat. She. The communicator hesitated for a moment, not knowing what to say. Song Ren turned his head suddenly. "What's wrong with her?" Seeing Song Ren's serious expression, the communicator knew that he had misunderstood and waved his hand quickly. "Nothing, nothing, just, you can see for yourself." Song Ren followed his instructions and soon saw Xingqian's figure. On the screen, Xingqian pierced and killed the bugs one by one, and then rushed to the next one without stopping. His moves were fierce and continuous, like an emotionless killing machine. That decisive killing look was completely different from Song Ren's impression of Lin Fan. Song Ren frowned, watching Xingqian's every shot hit the target, and every shot was fatal. Lin Fan's little implicit smile appeared in his mind. He asked in a deep voice, "What happened to Xingqian?" "Zhugang. The ground defense's resistance was really fragile in front of the alien forces. Although the general control had already given them various strategies for attacking bugs, they only realized how difficult it was after the real fight. Soon, the number of casualties in Zhugang exceeded that of the 49 city, and it was still rising. In addition, Zhugang was known as the Eastern Free Capital, and there were countless rebellious people who did not obey management, so the civilian casualties also reached a very terrible level. Although the ground garrison tried hard to save people, their efforts seemed to be in vain due to the huge difference in strength. Zhugang was facing an indiscriminate massacre. Under such an attack, the high-tech armaments that country H has always been proud of were like a candle flame, swaying and about to go out in a storm. "Where is the fighter formation?" the commander shouted. After knowing that Zhuhei might become a target, the military had already dispatched nearby fighters to provide support there. But ship number 3 arrived too quickly. Zhugang was in dire straits before long. The garrison troops could not even take into account the damage to the infrastructure and directly fired artillery, and the supporting fighters had not arrived yet. After encountering 2 consecutive strong resistances, the aliens finally found a sense of presence in Zhugang. This was the development they had expected, and their actions became more and more unscrupulous. There are still 5 minutes to reach the battle circle. The signal tracker reported 5 minutes. The command looked at the screen, and the high-rise buildings in Zhugang collapsed. The neon lights were broken, and the ground was cracked. In just a few dozen minutes, the City of Freedom completely lost its original style. Under the ravages of war, there were ruins and corpses everywhere. Even if the fighters arrived, how quickly would they help such a situation? Didn't you see that the fighter planes of Sigio City were all auxiliary, and now they have basically become logistics? In the main control room, everyone's optimism because Sigio City and Gao City had controlled the situation was shattered at this moment. This was only the 3rd attack point and they were already powerless to resist. If Gro made other moves, number 4, number 5, is ZHU Kunjin back? The general asked anxiously again. On the big screen of Gao City, the battle was fierce, and the summon beasts fought each other, with a hidden desire to win. Xingchenka jumped on top of number 2 and sank hard, trying to lower the height of number 2 so that the Hydra could successfully entangle it. But ZHU Kunjin's avatar position has been black. He told them not to have hope before he left. Now it seems that the big guys in the Special Affairs Office are really hard to hire. The screen of Sigio City only has 2 mechas, Xingchen and Pangu. Although the number of mechas has been greatly reduced, Xingchen's killing eyes have increased several times. The aliens above Sigio City have been almost cleared. Although ship number 1 is still dropping, its generation speed is far slower than Xingchen's killing speed. Xingchen has been chasing all the way, and is very close to ship number 1. Pangu is also about to reach the outer circle of the 7th ring. Soon, the final battle of Sigio City will begin. In this case, it is impossible to expect Xingchen to abandon the situation of Sigio City to save Zhugang. The Mecha with exhausted energy can't be relied on. Moreover, even if the nearby military forces are mobilized to rush over, it is too late. The attack of number 3 is too fast and too fierce. I don't know if it is a deliberate revenge. Sure enough, after the arrival of the fighter, the morale of our side has increased, and the counterattack has become stronger, but it has no effect on the overall battle situation. The control room is gloomy. The military is still mobilizing troops. Even if they know it is useless, they have to try their best. They can't just watch. At this time, a familiar shadow appeared in the picture. Mecha? Someone narrowed his eyes and guessed hesitantly. In the fierce fire and smoke, a silhouette of Mecha distorted by heat appeared in the picture. We still have mechas? Cui Yan. The general's joy was evident on the paper. 800 mechas are all in Sigio City. Cui Yan raised his eyebrows slightly and answered for ZHU Kunjin who was not present. I haven't heard that the special forces have all new mechas. The mechas that appeared in Zhugang. Could it be that they were left by the people and were not discovered by accident? The general's heart was heavy. If it were an untrained civilian facing such a scene, it would be hard to say how well the mechas would perform. Is Lin Fan well trained? He couldn't let go just now. What will this newly appeared mecha bring to the Zhugang that is about to capsize? The nameless mecha stepped out of the fire step by step, slowly floated up, and hung in the air where the morning light first appeared. finally revealing its full appearance. The outline of the mecha is similar to that of a star, but not quite the same. It is wider, the lines are more rigid, and there are more sharp corners. On the black-based outer armor, the crown, shoulders, chest, and thighs are all red. The red is darker than Fu Guang. The inner armor is different from Xingqian's. It is smoky gray. The eyes are the same, shining with a familiar green light. There was a lot of discussion in the control room, and before they could come to a conclusion, 3 pairs of black prismatic wings spread out from behind the mecha on the screen. Someone stood up and pointed at the screen. Everyone could understand his surprise. Although the appearance is very different, these big wings are like the 3 pairs of white wings behind Xingqian. Cui Yan's eyes twitched violently. This mecha is different from the green turtle before, and it is closer to the completed form of Xingqian after upgrading. So is it the complete version? Almost without thinking too much, everyone instantly determined that this mecha was the same biological armor as Lin Fan. But who is inside? Why did he come out at this time? Is he going to stand up and help Zhu Gang solve the crisis? Or is he originally a member of the alien group? On the screen, the red and black mecha reached behind his neck and slowly pulled out a long sword. It was a European broadsword with a black handle. The silver sword reflects the dazzling light of the rising sun. Who is this? Guess. It's a character that has appeared before. Chapter 523 Open Fire. The Pangu driver was frustrated for a long time and finally received the attack order from the main control. He suddenly accelerated, sprinted, and then jumped and pounced forward in the air. Ship number 1 was caught off guard and sank hard. The Pangu driver was delighted and kicked his legs upwards, trying to use his own gravity to pull the other party down again. As a result, he was pulled higher and higher by the increased power of ship number 1. The Pangu driver tried several times, but he couldn't resist the power of the spacecraft. Seeing that the altitude had reached a very dangerous critical value, if it continued, the risk of Pangu landing would rise sharply, and the driver decisively let go. After hitting the ground heavily, Pangu's huge body staggered and almost lost his balance. The driver sighed in his heart. It's a close call. Fortunately, he didn't rush for quick success. The surrounding insects gathered quickly. Although Pangu was huge and had a thick and hard surface, after the gun of the flyman hit him, his solid shell actually had a tendency to melt like a candle near fire. The insects that had not actively attacked Pangu before seemed to be angered by his attack on ship number 1 and swarmed over him. From Pangu's perspective, it was like being surrounded by a group of flies. Such a dense siege left him no time to take care of ship number 1. In addition, although the damage caused by the insect gun was not large, the number was large, and the superposition would accelerate the corrosion of the outer armor. Pangu had to focus on dealing with these merciful flymen. The shell on his forearm flipped over, revealing a row of 3 black firing ports. Bang 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 bang. With the burst of fire and the loud noise, the insects in front of Pangu were blasted into pieces. If we do this, the insect eggs will be scattered, right? Someone in the control room was worried. At such a close distance, just burn it directly. The person in charge of the armaments replied, besides, this is the fastest attack. Even if there are insect eggs scattered, we can check them later. Cui Yan also said, firepower attack is Pangu's best attack method. With his huge body, he is not as flexible as the bionic armor at present. Therefore, Pangu, as a giant artillery platform, is the one who can sit in the whole scene. As he spoke, Pangu had already rushed out of the gap he had created. His mission target has always been ship number 1, and he cannot lose sight of the main goal. Ship number 1 has risen since he attacked it, and Pangu can't reach it. He no longer tries to attack it, which he is not good at. He simply and crudely raised his arms and fired at ship number 1. On the big screen, a piece of fire rose, smoke and dust rolled, and ship number 1 was hit with sparks flying everywhere and retreated repeatedly. Everyone in the control room was full of expectations. But after the smoke dissipated, except for the shallow dense craters on ship number 1, it did not seem to have suffered serious damage. Many bugs within the range were all turned to ashes. How could this happen? Someone murmured. As the highest mobile artillery platform in country H, Pangu's firepower is naturally top-notch, but the intensive attacks just now only left some pits on the surface of the opponent's spacecraft. Those pits were not even as serious as the corrosion left by the flyman's gun on Pangu. The military's faces were livid. They were mentally prepared that it would be difficult to defeat the opponent with the level of weapons on Langsing. But they didn't expect that Pangu's continuous shooting just now, an attack that could sink a real aircraft carrier, would only leave such a few insignificant marks on the opponent. The advanced ship was so indestructible. What about the Grow, which was still watching in the sky? Everyone couldn't help but feel a chill in their hearts. Is this the gap caused by the gap in scientific and technological strength? When will they develop to this level? On the screen, Pangu's driver also found that the attack didn't work. The corners of his mouth gradually disappeared, and he decisively opened the missile loading program. The huge square structure on Pangu's shoulder was lifted up, and the front cover opened and retracted into the Mecha, revealing the black muzzle. The muzzle on the arm just now was nothing compared to the shoulder. There were 12 missiles on one shoulder, and both sides fired at the same time, which could fire 24 short-range rockets at a time. Such attack power could instantly flatten a small or medium-sized county. Come on, a volley. Don't try. Just attack with all your strength, the commander ordered. At this time, probing is meaningless. Once it fails like just now, morale will be seriously affected. If it happens a few times, there is no need to fight this battle. It is better to do it like ZHU Kunjin and use the most ruthless tricks. If it works, it's the best. If it doesn't, it's just a waste of firepower. At least it can quickly test the opponent's defense. When Lin Fan killed all the way, he happened to see the moment when the missiles on Pangu's shoulder were fired at the same time. The flames and white smoke rushed towards ship number 1 like a huge beast, engulfing it and rushing out far away. The deafening continuous explosions made Lin Fan, who was caught off guard, have tinnitus, and she couldn't help shaking her head. The remaining insects were like crazy, ignoring the stars that were more threatening to them, and all rushed to the back of Pangu to attack. Lin Fan didn't dare to stop for long, and injured the buzzing in his head, and went forward to clean up the remaining remnants. Did it succeed? In the control room, everyone saw that before ship number 1 was engulfed by the white smoke, it was no longer hanging steadily in the air like before, but rolled and hit far away, and they all stood up excitedly. It must succeed. It must succeed. Everyone prayed silently in their hearts, clenched their fingers, dug their toes into the ground, and even their hair was silently exerting strength. By the time the white smoke dissipated, Lin Fan had cleared all the alien insects in the 4-9 city. Her eyesight was better than that of an average person, so she first saw the situation of ship number 1 in the fading smoke. She silently flew to Pangu's side and stood shoulder to shoulder with him. Report: there is no other alien life form in Sigio City, except ship number 1. In the control room, the technician who had been monitoring this aspect raised his voice to report. Good. The general manager laughed and shouted, applauded vigorously, and others echoed. But not long after, the white smoke dissipated, and they regained their solemn expressions. The appearance of ship number 1 had been severely deformed, and half of its area was sunken, looking like a flattened car compartment at the scene of a car accident. But such an attack did not make it fall to the ground, and it was still floating steadily in the sky. Although it did not move, it could float in the air, at least proving that its power was not completely lost. So this attack was unsuccessful? Almost everyone had such a guess, but no one dared to speak out. The huge control room was so quiet that you could hear a pin drop. Ship number 1 did not move, the control room did not move, and Pangu and Xingchen did not move. Everyone was waiting for the result, but the result was delayed. Lin Fan killed his way here, his blood boiling. As soon as he calmed down, he felt all kinds of thoughts rushing into his mind. But ship number 1 was still floating in the air, and she couldn't collapse at this time. Master Control, is the current mission to destroy ship number 1? Lin Fan asked impatiently. The chief pondered for a moment and replied. Originally, we wanted to make it lose its mobility, but now it seems that, even if it loses its mobility, we are not sure what its internal situation is, and whether there are still bugs inside. So it is safest to completely destroy it. the chief said, and prepared to let Pangu launch another salvo, this time adding all the missiles in his body to see if he can succeed in one go. As a result, Xingqian flashed and stood on the crooked top shell of ship number 1. "What do you want to do?" the chief asked. Xingqian held the middle of the spear and raised it high, with some cruelty in his voice. "I want to see which one is harder, its shell or my gun." Pangu is actually very fierce, but he just encountered an alien ship. The technological gap is difficult to cross, so he seems to be something else. Pan felt aggrieved and pointed at the finger. Chapter 524. Pawn number 1. Lin Fan thrust her gun hard at her feet. Unexpectedly, she did not feel much resistance. It was a bit exaggerated to say that she was cutting tofu with a knife, but it did not seem to take much more force than penetrating the shell of a large cockroach. Lin Fan did not know whether it was because of her anger value or whether the spaceship was not as hard as it appeared. She was stunned for a moment, then she clenched her spear and slashed it hard to the side, trying to cut a hole in the top of ship number 1. Generally speaking, things with a hard shell are usually more fragile inside. Lin Fan had a beautiful idea. She could cut a hole in ship number 1 and Pangu could fire a few more shots inside. Wouldn't that be enough? At worst, she could kill all the remaining aliens inside. If there was any artificial intelligence, she could also kill it and destroy the main power system. Wouldn't that also destroy the ship? Once her mind was opened, Lin Fan was instantly full of energy. The people in the control room watched Xingqian standing on ship number 1 like hoeing the ground, dragging her spear around to cause damage. Just when she thought victory was in sight, she stopped moving again. "Xingqian, what's the situation now?" the chief asked in person. "Report, my gun is stuck by something and can't move." Lin Fan's voice showed that she was trying hard. She had rode easily before, but here she didn't know if it was inserted too deep or the angle was wrong, so it was stuck and couldn't move. According to the power of Xingqian, this situation shouldn't happen. Lin Fan complained in her heart while pulling out the gun. After pulling it out for a few times, it didn't move at all. The gun seemed to be growing on the boat. The anger in her heart, that was already a bit violent, surged up. She squatted down with her legs, sank her body, held the bottom of the long gun with both hands, and pulled it up with all her strength. After unremitting efforts, the long gun finally loosened slightly. Lin Fan continued to work hard, and an idea came to her mind. At the same time, he turned on the engine assistance on the Mecha, and the big wings also pressed against the boat to push down. After a tooth-grinding metal friction sound, the long gun was finally pulled out slowly. Lin Fan felt that the opponent's force was ridiculously strong, and it felt vaguely like pulling something from a magnet. Lin Fan was distracted for a moment, and the spear attracted a little. "Forget it, let's hurry up. Great strength can make miracles happen." Lin Fan didn't feel sorry for the spaceship and just pulled out the spear. The moment she held the spear, she even felt a little weak. Before she could continue to check what on earth was sucking her spear and generating such a strong magnetic force, ship number 1 moved again. It seemed to know that it would be finished if it continued like this, and began to rise into the air as if it wanted to retreat back to the grow. How could Lin Fan let it succeed like this? It had already taken 99 steps, and it couldn't let it escape in the last step. But she didn't dare to poke deeper into the ship, for fear of encountering the thing that sucked the spear again. When she pulled it out next time, it might have already entered the atmosphere. But it didn't seem to make much sense to just chop the surface. Didn't you see how rotten this ship was? It was still moving quite fast. Lin Fan couldn't think of a solution for a while, so she could only continue to chop it, which was better than nothing. Pangu was not to be outdone, and he fired his cannon at the spaceship below. Of course, there was some damage, and the bottom of the spaceship was also deformed, but at the same time, it also helped ship number 1. The chief immediately ordered Pangu to stop attacking, and at the same time, glanced at the screen of Geo City. Each summoned character was attacking hard, and Xingqian would occasionally run to ship number 2 to release electricity, and ship number 2 would immediately slow down. In a flash, the chief suddenly remembered that Xingqian seemed to have the power of thunder and lightning. In addition, Geo's first wave of attack, the thunder array, stunned ship number 2, and it did not move for a long time. among the 3 spaceships of the same model. Although ship number 2 was still relatively intact in appearance, it was the slowest in action. The main control room analyzed that it might be because of the previous thunder array that caused considerable damage to the interior of ship number 2. Now that ship number 1 is already in tatters, will it be more effective to use thunder to strike it? He decisively ordered, Xingqian, use thunder. Lin Fan was stunned for a moment, but his body executed it immediately faster than his brain. He found the place where he had inserted the weapon without any obstruction and thrust it in again. Then the lightning that was hidden somewhere poured out along the spear. On the big screen, only a flash of lightning was seen. Ship number 1 seemed to be wrapped in a blue-purple electric grid. Then the entire control room fell into darkness, with only the emergency lights emitting a faint green light. What's going on? The person in charge of the infrastructure of Sigio City asked loudly. Don't we have power failure protection? As the national center, Sigio City has never had such an unexpected power failure throughout the year except for regular maintenance. This is the pride of being the person in charge. As an emergency preparedness department, the control room naturally has power failure protection. Simply put, a guarantee battery is added to the back of the direct current. Even if there is an unexpected power failure, the battery will continue to supply power directly, and there will never be such a sudden power failure and shutdown. But it happened. The load is too high, the whole city is out of power, and the battery is burned. Someone replied, it's okay, the city still has a backup generator. Wait a few seconds and the power supply will be restored to the whole city. As soon as the words were finished, the control room was restored to light. The big screen was still black, and it took some time for various machines to restart. Why is the load so high all of a sudden? The person in charge stood up and asked. It was just dawn now, the big electricity users were all staying underground, and the factories were not in operation. It was impossible for a sudden large load to cause a power outage in the entire city. It was Xingqian. Sen Fangyuan breathed a sigh of relief, with mixed feelings in his heart. She just discharged electricity and affected the entire power grid of Sigio City. When the machine started, various electronic sounds ding-dong sounded, but no one present spoke. Hiss. Such a large amount of electricity. The person in charge of the armament said hesitantly, the circuit system of ship number 1 should not be able to withstand it. Everyone waited silently, and when the previous camera was reconnected, there was no trace of Xingqian and ship number 1 in the sky. The 360-degree camera searched quickly and soon found the charred wreckage of ship number 1 on the ground. It should be a wreckage. Anyway, it looked tattered and emitting black smoke, and it was obviously no longer usable. Xingqian stood obediently beside, looking up, as if talking to Pangu. Hello, hello, hello. Why did you suddenly lose contact? Lin Fan's voice suddenly came from the loudspeaker that had just returned to normal. Nothing will happen, right? I'll try. Pangu's driver also found that the communication was abnormal, and he was extremely nervous. Would the tower be stolen? Calling the main control. Pangu calling the main control. The main control received it. The main control room quickly replied, just now the whole city suddenly lost power, causing abnormal communication, and it has been restored now. Xingqian and Pangu were obviously relieved. It was not easy to shoot down ship number 1. If there was a problem in the main control room again, they would be in tears. The two sides exchanged a few words and basically confirmed that ship number 1 was useless. At least it was impossible to fly back. The power system inside should be broken, and if there were still bugs or something, it should be burned now. Just in case, Lin Fan was still poking around on the charred hull, trying to get out the thing that sucked her gun before. In the end, Cui Yan called a halt, saying that the ship was still worth studying, and tried to leave some things for them. Lin Fan jumped down obediently, holding the spear and asked, so is our battle finally over? Is it over? The chief turned his eyes to the other two large screens. Sijia Chen could finally rest. After daybreak, the power department began to repair the circuit. Chapter 525, The Battle of Gao ends. On Gao's big screen, various skills with built-in light effects are no longer so conspicuous in the gradually brightening sky. But because it is bright, various strange summons and alien forces are clearer than at night under the street lights. Ultraman is limited by time and does not have much advantage in this battle, so he leaves early. Other robots, Hydra, Big Toad and other summons that do not exist in reality are fighting with the Flyman riding a cockroach. Every time I look at it, I feel that this world is too fantasy. Starcard shuttles around with its speed advantage. Kill 2 aliens here, and when passing by ship number 2, jump up and discharge electricity to find some opportunities for Hydra, then fly down and continue to fight Flyman. I don't know if it has no independent thinking, or the power is not copied enough when copying, so it only discharges a little bit each time. Give ship number 2 a numbing moment, and kick Hydra while it can't move. Unfortunately, every time the Hydra is about to circle around, it just recovers. Zinchenko didn't care, she just killed a few aliens, and went back to do the same thing. Hydra didn't care either, it was very calm, and focused on destruction. It wasn't that important whether it could entangle the spaceship and drag it down. So during Gaius' attack, ship number 2 just stopped for a while, sank, and then barely escaped. When it continued to rise and move, Zinchenko came back again. If they didn't know that Zinchenko had no independent consciousness, the group of smart people in the main control would have suspected that she was deliberately playing with the alien spaceship. Of course, they were secretly happy watching this process. The battle situation in Geo City has always made them very optimistic. Our forces devoured the opponent bit by bit, and did not cause any form of damage and casualties in other aspects. If Xinchin of Sigio City hadn't let go, they felt that Gao's progress was very good, even obviously better than Sigio City. But Xinchin suddenly became bloodthirsty, and his efficiency was raised, directly destroying ship number 1, and quickly ending the battle in Sigio City. In this comparison, Gao, which was originally in the lead, suddenly seemed a little lagging. Let's look at Zhugang. The nameless mech waved the broadsword in his hand and mercilessly killed the aliens. The pressure on the ground defense suddenly decreased, and they got a precious breathing opportunity to reorganize. The nameless mech is currently facing them. This is probably the best news after the capture of Zhugang. But it's not enough. The mech's killing speed is very fast, almost the same as Xinchin. But he came out too late. The sky above Zhugang was densely packed with aliens. Even if he killed them all the time, he only cleared a small half. And ship number 3 was still dropping comfortably over Zhugang. At the beginning of the 49th city, there were 11 mechas fighting together, which created a better condition for Xinchin, allowing her to quickly clear the field in the later stage, by relying on the speed difference. The nameless mech is weak. Even if his current killing speed is a little faster than that of ship number 3, it will take a long time to clear the field like Xinchin. In this kind of direct conflict battlefield, time is life. The longer the time drags on, not to mention the destruction of the city, every minute and every second is filled with human lives. So, should Xinchin go to support? The chief looked back at the big screen of Sigio City, where the dust had settled. Xinchin was still standing with her spear, but from her slight panting and obvious relief when she asked questions before, it can be guessed that Xinchin was tired. The chief was not sure how long Xinchin's physical strength could last, but thinking of how she had flown all the way from Sichuan province in the beginning, dragging so many mechas. Then she flew non-stop to find carriages and rescue the people from danger. Then they went into battle, and the ground forces of Sigio City basically followed Xinchin to make up for it. They all knew the physical condition of the bionic armors after they left the battlefield. Not to mention being tired, because they had to pierce the alien's hard armor. The driver's hands were almost shaking like a sieve after he came out of the mecha. At this time, Xinchin single-handedly supported the entire battle situation. Even though her structure was different from that of the bionic armor, the high-intensity fighting for several hours in a row really consumed her physical strength. Not to mention the reason why she went on a killing spree, her mental state was also very bad. The last big discharge that caused the electric meter of the entire Sigio City to trip was extremely physically demanding. Xinchin was not exhausted after such a long and high-intensity output, which was really due to her special physique. But she was tired for sure. The general even suspected that the long spear sticking on the ground was actually propped up to support her body from falling. As long as she was told that the battle was over at this time, her breath would relax, and she would immediately stop the combat state and collapse on the ground. At this time, Xingqian was asked to support other places. Not to mention whether her physical strength was still good. Which of the two places should she support? In theory, according to the critical situation, she should go to Zhugang. But the situation of the nameless Mecha is still unclear. If Xingqian rashly goes there, will there be a counter effect when the two meet? After all, the last time a Mecha other than Xingqian appeared, Xingqian was almost killed. Although the nameless Mecha is attacking the aliens now, no one knows who is inside and what force it is. Who can guarantee that he will not suddenly attack when facing Xingqian? Compared to Xingqian, who had been tired for several hours, the nameless Mecha was obviously in much better condition. In this case, if the two of them were to face off, Xingqian might not be able to get away with it. Then go to support Gao? But Gao currently has a clear advantage, and it is only a matter of time before the battle ends. It is not necessary to send support to help. The chief thought quickly in his head, and when he was in trouble, Zhu Kunjin came back. Good news. Zhu Kunjin smiled, but was diverted by the end of the battle in Sigio City on the screen. Sigio City is over. It is worthy of being my Xingqian. Everyone was waiting for good news, but ended up listening to the praise attentively. Although it was true, it was not what they wanted to hear in their hearts. Director Zhu, your good news is. Sen Fangyuan spoke quickly, trying to bring the topic back. Oh, yes. The boss of our institute mentioned before has already left for Zhugang and will be here soon. Zhu Kunjin smiled, glanced at the screen of Zhugang, and suddenly jumped up from his chair. That Mecha. Zhu Kunjin spent more than half an hour to ask for help, and naturally missed many things in the middle, including Lin Fan's transformation, and of course missed the appearance of the nameless Mecha. Wang Fengfeng hurriedly reported to him concisely, and added at the end, it has been compared and screened, and there is no relevant information. Zhu Kunjin suppressed his worries, and dealt with the most important things first. After he learned that ship number 1 was taken down by Xingqian's power amplifier, he contacted Zhao He to deal with it in the same way. After Zhao He sent out the order, he found that the power of Xingqian card was not sufficient. All the remaining durability was used for discharge, and ship number 2 could not be split, and the Xingqian card was automatically retracted. The robot card was not high enough, holding the tail of the Hydra. It finally reached ship number 2. One head reached it, and the other heads also reached it. The powerless ship number 2 was dragged to the ground. All the other characters rushed forward, launching physical and magical attacks. Soon, ship number 2 was also destroyed. At the same time, a young man in white clothes with a flying sword appeared in the sky above Zhugang. Applause. The eldest brother is here. Quack, quack, quack. Speaking of which, the Special Affairs Department has covered the whole scene. End of this chapter. Thank you very much for reaching the end. Don't forget to like. Looking for more exclusive content and immediate access? Subscribe to our Patreon. Remember, every like, subscription, or donation encourages us to continue. Thanks to everyone. See you in the next video.